Right.
There you
We're
go.
alive now.
We're live now. Grace and peace be unto each and every one of you from God our Father, Lord Jesus Christ, and the God of your understanding. We greet you on this Friday evening. Glad to be alive. This is the day that I believe the Lord has made, and I choose to rejoice and be glad in it. This is the Pastor in the Hood, Ali, and this is All Politics and Local, and I'm glad to be sharing the stage tonight with Brother Zaid Muhammad and Brother Ed Riley. And also Jonathan Austin, so y'all can chime in and say hello to the people.
Hey, how are you?
Hello to the people. I take orders well.
Hey, hey, Ed, say hey.
We waiting on you, Ed. You
We're just waiting, Ed.
You muted. You muted, Ed.
Gotta hear your voice, Ed. You're on mute. Well, it's all good. He getting there.
All right. Well, tonight's show is going to be a great lineup. At 6 o'clock, of course, you know we have the disciples, Reverend Louise, Scott-Rountree, Pastor Ali, Bryant, Ali in the Hood, Bryant in the Hood, Ali. We've got Minister Haqq Muhammad all on at 6 o'clock. That's the disciples, because you know if it's the fourth Friday, it's always the disciples. At 7 o'clock, coming in right after, we have an education summit, like school's about to start. We know school's about to start. So we've got an educational summit coming on with Kaleena Berryman co-hosting a panel with Dr. Sharnee Brown, the Chief Educational Officer for the City of Newark, Love Galliard, a social worker and activist on education, Corey Harris, an educator, and Dr. Leah Owens, an educational activist. Everyone knows Leah from the work that she has done on education. And they're going to be talking about let's go to school. They're getting ready to go to school. So it's back to school night. It's our back to school educational summit. At 8 o'clock, Larry, the chairperson of People's Organization for Progress, Larry Hamm, will be on with Queen Amakhu. Talking about Queen
Mother Amakhu.
Queen Mother Amakhu is coming on, and they're going to be talking about again, it's Black August, right? Like, you know, Black August, everything in August that's ultra black, that's happening in August. They're talking about Nat Turner and the rebellion and the park is all going to be talked about. So that's our show up, right? Like that, we're going to have an active, lively show coming on. So
well, it's all good. Sounds good. Sounds like a great lineup. So glad to see Reverend Louise, Councilwoman Reverend Louise, Scott-Rountree.
I'm on the page.
Yes. Oh, her son. What's up, baby?
Listen, what's up, Pastor in the Hood? I'm at Marion J. Franklin's wake. I'll be in here for about 4 minutes. I'm getting ready to speak. I will then be in my car to finish the show. But I just have to come and pay my respects. And I'm asking for prayers for the First Baptist Church in Vauxhall. This man came here in June of 1971. He is a pastor's preacher and a preacher's pastor. And you know that, Dr. Ali, you know what he sold into many a pastors.
I have family at the church.
I'm at Vauxhall representing at First Baptist for the next 10 minutes at the most. And then I will be back.
All right.
To join the disciples. I'm excited about the lineup, and I don't want to miss my opportunity to have a conversation with All Politics and Local, the number one hip-hop political radio show with the greatest producer called our beloved Ed Riley. And then you got this guy called Jonathan, that's the sergeant at arms. And my beloved brother, shout out to Minister Abdul Haqq Muhammad. He said, pray for the nation of Islam. Let us pray. Whatever's going on, we don't know. But guess what? When somebody say pray, let's pray.
Muhammad just passed. One of
their
top people.
Oh, yes, I do know that. But he didn't say what to pray for. He just said pray for the nation. So when God knows what's going on, all we got to do is pray when somebody say pray. So I'll be back in a few minutes.
All right. I got family at that church too, as you were.
Yeah, Dr. Mary Franklin was a great warrior, great preacher, great pastor. He was there by First Baptist Church in Vauxhall since the 70s. So You're talking over 50 years, man, held it down. And not only was he educated, but he was also radical. Him and I did a lot of Good Friday services together at Great Abyssinia Church. And just was a brother beloved, especially how he loved on young preachers and those of us that were coming up at a time. So we want to keep Reverend Louise Scott-Rountree lifted up. And we also want to keep Minister Abdul Haqq lifted up because he did ask for prayer for the nation. And he won't be on tonight. So we know that anytime you lose somebody that's very active, somebody that's very prominent in your organization, it takes a toll on the whole organization and affects people in many different ways. I've been had 2 funerals this did over the last 2 weeks. One of my members, 55 years old, came out the monster, died at the hospital, and I just did another one of former. She was married. My wife. My wife, it's her brother, her late brother's ex-wife. So I did her funeral on Tuesday. So it's just like, it's a season. It's a strange season. Am I the only one that believes that there's some strange things going on? Or is it just me? Is it just me? There seems to be a strange season. What do you think, Donna?
Pastor Ali, do you ever teach on death and dying? Can you ever prepare for?
Hold on a second. Just we got to welcome the lovely Donna. She's on time and gonna ring some bells.
We're lucky today.
Welcome to our other co-host.
Welcome.
Donna, welcome.
I'm gonna get you. I need that laugh though.
Well, forgive me for not welcoming you. You said family. It's just like you come in the kitchen and everybody say, "Hey."
She got a fresh haircut too. I see you, Queen.
She grown.
But Pastor Ali, you're right. On death and dying is a season, and even me thinking about losing my mother takes me to a place. Do you prepare? What do you do for your parishioners, and do you do anything on, because it's a long season or short season, or it's different for everybody.
It's for basically what people believe. Number one, about death and dying.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of sets the atmosphere. As a pastor and as a Christian, and for believers, we believe that death is a passageway to heaven, so to speak. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. But in the natural, just the loss of family members, just the loss of individuals, I teach on it, not the minute of the hour, but it's something that all of us have to go through, except in the Christian religion. If we believe in the rapture, everybody won't have a physical death, but everybody will have it taken away. But I teach it as, I put it to you this way, Sister Donna. It's no way, it's according to your relationship with the person, it's no way you can just deal with death and it's over when that funeral is over. If the person meant anything to you, my mom's been dead since 2018. I still feel it. My nephew died last year. I feel it. My father been dead over 40 since 1980. I still feel it. So a lot of it has to do with your relationship with the person. But in the Bible, it tells us it's once appointed for a man to die, and after death comes the judgment. So within my congregation, I teach on it as part of our curriculum, so to speak, as part of our beliefs, that death will come. And, you have to deal with each death individually. It's not something that you can put in a box because each person represents something different to individuals in life. And I don't care how bad a child is, for instance. It's still your child. I lost my son, and my son had just been out of prison 2 years. And the thing was, but he was still gone. As far as I was concerned, he was still my baby boy. So when you deal with death, you have to deal with it from the perspective that it is reality. That's number one. And number two, that there is comfort in the Creator as you go through that process. As the scriptures declare in his favor, his anger is only for a moment, and in his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy come in the morning. The joy part comes after I grieve, but the joy part comes in. I'm grateful for the time I spent with him and the funny things that we shared in life. we can go back and laugh about it. I look at my mom's side of the family. It was 11 of them. Now it's down to 4 of them. And how each of them, 2 of them are in their 80s and 2 are in their late 70s. And as we see them transition and going headed on, and then my generation, the 60s and over, we're the next group in line. And it's like this thing called life. It's a turnover over and over again, and even among young folk. My nephew was in his early 20s. My son was in his 20s. No matter, my baby brother was 10 months. No matter young or old, it affects each individual differently. And how you process their birthdays, how you process the occasion. Was it a tragic death? Was it an expected death? My mom was ready to go. My mom was like, I'm out of here, I'm going home. So it's according to how each individual prepared you for their departure. But yes, I do teach on it at the ministry.
And that's very important. And that's very important because you said how the person prepared you. And in the Christian religion, we're sometimes so busy living that we forget that we're going to have that appointment date. And because we don't deal with it in the physical, meaning that we don't get our wills together, we don't have our in orders, like somebody, I remember we had a meeting and somebody said now everybody has a cell phone. So maybe that's a good thing to say. The day you buy the cell phone, you get your first insurance policy, because people tend to do that as soon as they can afford to do it. And sometimes, and we know with insurance policies, the younger you do it, the more affordable it is. If we wait till we're in our 60s, and so it's like, wow, you may not get it when you get that price. So do you deal on the natural part of it in terms of?
Oh yeah, I deal with GoFundMe is not insurance.
That's right.
Can you say that 3 more times?
Especially important to young
GoFundMe is not
men.
Insurance. GoFundMe
Yes, sir. Come on.
is not insurance. GoFundMe is not insurance. GoFundMe is for tragedies that happen that people were unprepared for, fires and stuff like that, multiple deaths at one time, a car accident and stuff like that. But everybody ought to prepare for the departure like they prepare for everything else. I teach y'all, you have to have, if you didn't prepare for your death, why should we scramble to bury you? If it didn't mean nothing to you, don't leave it behind for the family to go in debt to bury you.
Right.
And
listen, let me tell y'all something.
Go ahead.
I had to get shot to realize how important insurance was for me.
Okay.
Right. And it's something that became a part of my mantra and trying to talk to young brothers, especially. There's more to life than, the tales that are surround your life. We need to be leaving more behind to our children than those tales, right? Legacy is something that is your capacity to leave your loved ones with the means to sustain themselves in your absence. It's not just how tough he was.
I was about to say, what's that scripture on legacy, Pastor? What's that scripture?
The Christian scriptures say, a good man leaves inheritance to his children's children. So every man, every woman are responsible for blessing the grandchildren.
Right.
That's 2 generations, the children's children. And if we practice that, go down the line, that's why property is important. That's why investments are important. That's why, I don't care if they leave you $10 a piece. It was something left to you that you didn't have in the first place. And it is a challenging time because, I work in the funeral business, not as much as I used to, but I can tell who has and who hasn't. And it's not based on how they lay out, because many times those who don't have want everything. They want the horse, they want the buggy, they want this.
They ain't got no money. That's right.
They don't have no money. They want to put on a show. Many times the one with the biggest mouth is the one with the least money.
Yeah. Yes.
And last week we were talking about, and Ed always referred to a particular area, and I think he says the Greenwood section of Jersey City, and how people are coming over with bags of money buying Big Mama's house, because Big Mama prepared and she bought that house and had that house. But somewhere between Big Mama purchasing that property and bringing us up, there was something lost in terms of maintaining that property so that it would be there, that because everybody stayed at Big Mama's house for various reasons, you know, but there was something lost in translation that we didn't prepare in the way that Big Mama did, because Big Mama paid for her funeral and she had that house, but the next generations after weren't able to maintain it. So something's getting lost in translation.
It's called taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't no taxes on Big Mama house. Big Mama paid taxes, and I think it's a piece that we have to teach. Those, especially those of us that have properties. You know, a property can be hard to hold on to. A property can be hard as you get older. But if you got a piece of property, you have to hold it for your children's children. You know, I don't care, down south, piece of land. I don't care if it's only a whole 4 lines of carrots. It's still a piece of land. And if you don't want it, somebody will come along and get it. And many times we don't discuss after death. We only live. We just live. We just live. And then when person expire, we grieve. But nobody wants to talk about the business part of after the you know, the transition, that there is life after death. And many times they want to put all the money in the ground and not have no money to live on. And I think in essence, the preparation tells how much they love the ones that they left behind. You know, when many people say, I'm gonna spend it all. Well, that's ignorant to spend it all and not leave it to nobody when you came in the world with nothing. So somebody had to give you something from the time you were birthed until the time you were able to take care of yourself. And then you'd be so selfish, saying, well, nobody gave me nothing, so I'm gonna spend all the money. Now, you know, they talk that put me in a garbage can, but it's illegal to put you in a garbage can. They talk that just burn me. But cremation is not illegal.
You get a ticket for putting you in a garbage can.
Yeah. You know, throw me to the curb, let the garbage man come and get me. And that's ignorant. And that's why I always have respect for the homeless, because I see how they strive to live day in and day out. You know, and people that got homes, people that got roofs over their head, people that are unemployed and everything. Don't cherish life and be thankful for what they have, that they can just look at it so minuscule and say, that means nothing. I won't leave it to nobody. I'll burn it down before the family have it.
In fact, most brothers and sisters in our hood, man, they believe they want to leave that responsibility to someone else, So when you talk to them about that, they say, oh man, let that be somebody else's responsibility. I'd rather spend $20 on a pack of cigarettes instead of spending, $20 on an insurance policy, in order to make sure that, I'm not a burden to my family. But, that's just the way some of these folks are thinking, man. And I think that's unfortunate. Or, Ali, this, they leave that burden on the church. You know what I mean? Where a lot of time that end up being the pastor's responsibility, trying to raise money from the church members to try and bury one of the members. The other thing is that, back in the day, when I was coming up, and you probably remember this too, Ali and Zaid, Donna, you probably too young for this, but I remember when the insurance man used to come to my mother's house and my mother used to go get the change.
Oh, I remember that.
I remember his name was
the
insurance man was J. Bell. Mr. J. Bell was in our house.
And pay the insurance man when he came in. That was something we believed in, right? We believed in our death just as much as we believed in our life, right?
Before my mom died, she came. I had to sit down with her. My wife and I had to sit down with her and go through every policy. And she showed me the policies that she left for my brothers. She would let me know what she wanted me to do. Don't go overboard, et cetera, et cetera. She handled her business. And as far as Donna said for the church and Ed for the church, as far as New Summers Worship Center, I'm in the funeral business, but we don't do funerals. We don't pay for funerals. We don't do that. You didn't earn a funeral. Right. Because you gave, right. You didn't. That nowhere you go, gives you a funeral because you give. Your cleaners won't bury you because you get your clothes cleaned there. ShopRite won't bury you because you buy your groceries there. You know, so don't think because you go to church, the church is obligated to bury you. We had one funeral we did, and because I worked in the business, we had it down to the minimum. We raised the money, but a woman had thought she had a policy, and her policy had lapsed. And she was one of our ministers, and we ended up burying her. Thank God her husband was in the military. He was able to send her to Army Town, and we was able to do it with the money that was raised, because Black folk will give money to the family with the money was raised. But the people saw the challenge, how challenging that was to put her in the ground. That out of all the funerals I have done in New Psalmist, all the way back to the Reach days, I've never had one come to me needing to be helped getting buried. And I mean, just the funeral I just did on last week, young boy, 55 years old, in and out of jail all his life. But his mother, bless her heart, had a policy on every one of her boys, a piece of policy that they could go on the ground.
That's, you know, it's interesting, but this is such an important conversation because you're right. In our community, what we've sort of thought is an insurance policy, you're right, Ali, is the GoFundMe's now, right? You know, where you go to all
young
the
folks are very fickle about that.
And you know, and go get them to do that. Yeah, which is just absolutely incredible. Because what we don't get is that, you know, and this is interesting. Y'all know I just lost my sister back in February. And one of the things you were saying, Ali, was how they prepare for all of that. You know what I mean? And she actually had a conversation, you know, with her children before she left, and told them exactly what she wanted them to do, and you know how she wanted them to spend the money, and she didn't want them to spend it on her. And what's interesting enough is, you know, I wrote that policy for her. You know, which was interesting. Years ago, I wrote that policy for her, and you know, and what I didn't know is, Ali, is that you know, when they sat down as a family, and of course when Kim and I got down there, you know, they had everything worked out, even to the point where when she was having financial difficulty, and I never knew it, but she had already understood her policies well enough that she knew she had money in those policies to get herself out of because they had accrued equity. She knew she had the money in order to get herself out, out of that situation. So even her financial debts were paid for from her insurance policies, and she had enough to cover a funeral, and she had enough to leave an inheritance to her children and her grandchildren, which was incredible.
She handled her business.
Black women get it.
It sounds like, from what you're saying, that if we take the time, one, to buy the policy, and then not only buy it, but also sit down and have that heart-to-heart conversation, that the more that's preparing, and the more you'll probably be really celebrating the life of, you know, our loved one, because it's very important. You know, my pastor, when I was in the military, my pastor in Florida used to say weddings and funerals will bring some some behavior out of people that you never knew.
Hey, Donna, one thing, hey, Ali, I mean, you probably know this, right? But I can tell y'all in the South, when somebody go on to be with the Lord, they start looking for them policies. Who got it?
Oh,
I know you got one. I know who got it.
What they call a funeral director.
And you know what's funny, Pastor Ali, I had the opportunity to sit down at one of my loved ones passed away, and they had chosen Miss Wiggum to do their funeral. Now, Carol, she did something very interesting. You know, she set the family down. She told the family, you know, get all the policies, you know, bring them over. And then when she gave the folder back to the person, she had outlined, you have policy, you know, totaling this, the cost is this, you'll get back this. And you know, she just outlined everything in a very simplified way, you know, out of all of those papers that the family had given to her. So I thought that was very interesting that she, you know, took the time and did that. But Yeah, so she, she really did a good job with the family.
That's the business, because the majority of families are not in the funeral business. You grieve and you're hurting.
Right.
Someone has gone, so it's not like you can sit down and know the difference between a casket, know the difference between a grave, know how many cars you want to buy, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The flowers, flowers can run you $1,000.
Yep.
Different things, and a lot of times people want to rent churches because the family, they want to have that good presentation to the people. The funeral I did on this past Tuesday, she was a member of, she taught in the school system for over 40 years, but she had laid out what she wanted done. She's being cremated. It was not a burden on her children.
Right. That's that, and Ali, that's exactly what my sister did. Right. She understood all of the costs, and sort of had that conversation. And it was just incredible. I mean, and Kim will tell you, when we got to South Carolina, we didn't have to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes the weight off the whole family.
Yeah.
Because you got a little change when they got to raise money.
Right.
They got to raise money. I've seen, being a pastor, I've seen funerals held up. They put 500 still.
That's true.
On the bill.
That's absolutely true. That's because remember, after your family get buried, ain't nobody coming to pay nobody.
Nobody coming to dig nobody up. Kids, you got to get them while they crying, because once that tears dry up, the pockets dry up also.
Right.
And I think, we're laughing about it in a humorous way, but it's a serious subject. And we as a people must do better. Mm-hmm. We as a people must do better. I think if Corona hasn't taught us anything, it has taught us the difficulties of death.
That's true.
Funeral homes being backed up.
Good point. Good point, Ali.
Can come to the funeral. I think the pain of the death, the pain of Corona, and a lot of people think the Corona is over. It's not over. It's just, I think, a lot of people vaccinated, whatever the case may be, but it's not over. But I think during that season, not being able to bury your loved one for 2 or 3 weeks, for some people up to a month. Mm-hmm. You don't get no closure. You grieve. One of my ministers that I buried, we was a month before we could bury her.
Mm-hmm. Or especially
and Donna, you lost your mother during COVID.
So at the beginning, and we couldn't even go.
Right, we couldn't even come visit, and show our respects.
And just think about and Ed, like I'm born 1967. I'll be 55 this year, and I can remember that you would have a wake for 2 days back. It would be like
67.
Yes, my love. 67.
You started to ride when she was born.
Wait a minute, I want to go backwards for a minute. I know I'm coming in just bombarding, but Councilwoman, Ali didn't tell you that he been the one that passed the basket sometime. Did I miss that? If the money wasn't there?
No. Hey,
he said what we're not going to do.
Ali done been in some funerals, and them people was crying and screaming and yelling and talking all this foolish shit. He knew that the money wasn't there. He be like, okay, now we just going to pass the basket because y'all got all this to say, so y'all going to have to come up with some facts. Yeah.
What they did, they came up with over $2,000.
He sure did. He got it too.
And had some.
Now they think
GoFundMe is volunteers are flowing.
Donna, now they think GoFundMe is insurance.
Yeah, that's how we started off. What he said, 3 times, Councilwoman, that GoFundMe is not insurance. He just said 3+ times. And
but see, Reverend Rountree, that's why we need men and women of God like y'all, right? Because only Black people can talk to Black people for real. You know what I mean?
Right.
And say, look, like Ali said, go in your pockets right now. Y'all got to come out with some of that money. And, only Black people, because we know each other, right? That's why Minister Farrakhan said what he said. When he said Black people know Black people, right? Mm-hmm. And we got to have that Black conversation.
That's
because,
right.
like Ali said, they doing all that crying and woo-hoo. But trust me, when that's over, they're going to find, and after the repast, they're going to find the nearest bar they can to have some drinks and everything they got in their pocket, right? And talk about, he was great, and all so. but they ain't contribute a dime. They looking for the GoFundMe, right?
Right.
Come on, man.
And you know what? And Zaid, and you know, we learn sometime through. I love. Okay, Queen Kim just put up
Kim has been
GoFundMe.
chiming in. She gave you a gorgeous shout out, Donna. She
But
gave us all the shout out. She's been
Go
chiming
ahead,
in
Lady Riley.
yes, yes.
front center.
But sometimes we can learn so much through the through theater, through stage plays. I never forget. I was watching an episode of Law and Order. And you know how Law and Order opens up, and they opened up, somebody was dead and a baby happened to die. And the first thing when they were doing the investigation with this particular family, they noticed the investigators noticed that they had an insurance policy. And the police got, why would you have an insurance policy on this baby? And the family said, when we're born, the first thing we do is get an insurance policy when they're a baby. And I was like, you know, at a baby, but some people don't think about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you know,
gotta have my brother died at 10 months back in the 60s. And thank God, you know, my mother and them had a policy on him.
10 months.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he was 10 months. But he was
10
born
months old.
sickly, and they had a policy on him.
And just think about the Gerber policies. You throw that, because that comes in, as soon as you have that mailed, you know, the Gerber policies come.
I believe that's what it was, a Gerber policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gerber grow up, they call it.
But the younger you buy it, the healthier you are, the more, you know, $1 million policy. And there's a sister, Newark. She went to, she does a whole seminar. She sells insurance, especially she did it around when Prince passed and when Aretha Franklin died. And they just didn't take the time to put their papers in order, because sometimes they're so busy living, and they had the money. They just didn't put their papers in order. But we have to do it at a young age when we're healthy, have the conversation and put those papers up and go back and revisit those conversations as things change.
And what happens,
but because of the conditions
that
we
you raised
live in,
that is that you know, when you have money like a Prince or an Aretha Franklin, and you do not do that, when you pass, guess who gets the lion's share of that money?
Mm-hmm.
There's a thing called a state law and a state taxes, and they snatch a lot of that money right on up. So it's so no matter your station in life, you're in the streets trying to figure out how to, you know, whether or not you're gonna live or die. You done made it to the promised land, done got paid and living large. Anywhere in between, everybody still should have something. Should have something to handle.
Well,
I think we really have to understand that if we look at it real closely, Zaid and everyone, if we look at how life has shifted over these last 2 years, if we think about it, we think about how many people when university had all those trailers up there, you know. Think about it. Think about what's going over in Ukraine. When you look at how many people are passing and doing these different things, when you look at the season that we are in, you have Ukraine. When you look at the floods, when you look at people losing homes, not only just health insurance, not only just life insurance, you need apartment insurance, you need home insurance, because when you look at the tragedy of these floods that have been going on, and people are not they're not anticipating that. When you see in Texas the streets flooded out, when you see the bus up to past the engine, when you see people on the roof, stuff like that, will take you back to Katrina. When you look at the people that are coming in from Texas now, money for that. When you look at Biden can give to Ukraine millions and billions of dollars. And when you look, he can forgive $10,000, and you got a Pell Grant, all these different things. But how long has we as people of color been struggling? I'm talking about the people that struggle. I'm not talking about the folk that want to get over. Have been struggling just to make it, and they can't find a dime for us.
Yeah.
But they can find us on election day.
Or they can always find us on election day. They give it, you know, but nothing again. But I'm thinking about the overall picture. The overall picture when I look at them buses arriving in New York.
We have to talk about that. And did you? Are we all here?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's
Okay,
here.
because we got so quiet. When them buses, I don't know what's going on.
This is such a serious conversation. We all doing some
It
legwork.
really is. You know,
Yeah.
Brother Altari Kinney, our surrogate, I know when he first was elected to that office, he went around to the cities, to council meetings and churches, and was talking about, you know, getting your paper, your wills in order, how you can come down to that office and you can prepare. Because if you don't prepare, then you're going to see him on the opposite end when he's going to have to charge you, because he's going to have to do, you know, what do they call a will? Is it intestate, or, you know, when you don't have a will and you die?
Right. That's right.
Yeah. And so, you know, like you just said, you have to money that you don't have, and you have to pay, you know, the surrogate and do probate and all of that. So you know, you have to prepare. This is one appointment that whether, I don't care how much you put it off, you got to make this appointment.
That's real talk, right? Everybody got an exit date, right? Everybody, you know.
And I'm sure the councilwoman can attest in her office how many people are going to want to come through her office because she's so well known, and because she's a councilwoman, but also a woman of God. That's going to think
coming.
that she's going to have to pay for everybody.
It's coming. Now that she's an elected official, it's coming.
Not as Pastor Roundtree, but as Councilwoman Roundtree. When you raise your hand, to today, how many calls have you got for funerals?
Let me tell y'all something. Forget councilwoman. Before I was an elected official, they was coming to my office. What I did was I helped someone raise a major amount of money for a funeral about 12 years ago. And when I did that, and people started helping, folks started sending folks, oh, the mayor will do this, the mayor will do that. And we don't have a fund. We don't have no bereavement fund. And you know, down at City Hall, the state, they have the victims compensation, where they assist with burying loved ones. What they do, the truth of the matter is, the best I can get you now is a burial. It won't cost you nothing, but you can't even see the loved one through that one. I mean, they have all types of ways to put your loved ones away. What we have to realize is that, oh my God, we spend $8 to $10 a pack on a pack of cigarettes. You know, Globe insurance is very inexpensive.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what they are. When I was a kid, they was like $2 or something, $5, whatever. But the truth is, we spend money on things and then expect it to be the responsibility of someone else when our loved one dies. Wait a minute, let me just parenthetically pause there for a minute. How about take care of your own business? If don't nobody have no insurance on you, you get your little $10,000 policy. But when you're dead, you don't know. So it don't matter. So those who don't care of the struggle and the stress that they're putting on other individuals to make sure they're buried, okay? Well, if the person you got to bury don't care, then you better care. If you don't care, then it is what it is. And that sounds terrible, because we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't even think that way and feel that way. But when people come to you and say, well, first of all, we don't know when we leaving here. You know, people drop dead of heart attacks at 28 years old. Different situation. That's different. But if you out here drinking and drugging and living a life that you better make some provisions for your family, especially those who have children, because it's unfair to a community to have to pick up the weight of an individual who just didn't care or thought they were invincible and weren't going anywhere. We all were born to die. We can break all types of appointments. One appointment you're not going to break or change, and that is when you leave here.
Yep.
So I just pray that the people that are listening out there, or those that are tuned in, will understand that it is not the burden. Yes, we are to take care of the widows, the wives. We are to help. We're to feed you. We to clothe you. Go see you in jail. We're supposed to do all of that. But when you leave here, those who are able to make provisions for you to be taken care of after you're gone, unless you just are not concerned about being thrown into a fiery furnace. You know, some people have had to make decisions to cremate their loved ones, not knowing whether their loved one wanted that or not. We better start writing stuff down. When I was selling insurance quite a few years ago, I read a story about Jackie Robinson. Here, this man had everything but didn't have a will. When you don't have a will, you got some type of estate. You know who you got to fight over your estate, over your stuff.
That's right.
You got money and got to fight the state over your stuff.
That's right.
Because you didn't put it in order. I'll give you ain't got nothing but a television. Write down where you wanted to go so folks ain't fighting over it, you know, when you're gone.
But
I don't have
Rountree,
I ain't got to write that one down.
And Rountree, you know, black folk, they will fight over that television.
That color TV.
Hey, I ain't got one to fight over.
They fight over televisions, underwear.
And at the end of the day, we found out
I just got books.
My Lord.
At the end of the day, we found out it belonged to Rent a Center.
Come on here. And they coming to pick it up.
1-800 junk.
I tell you, but that, and again, has Al-Tariq ever come on the show, Councilwoman?
It's been a while. It's been a while. I was
It's been a while when he first got
on one of the singers today. They're doing a
He's been on it. They
Yeah.
riding down to Washington, D.C. on those bicycles.
Shout out to them. Yeah, shout out to Al-Tariq, and they're doing a fundraiser for HBCUs, a ride from Newark to Washington, D.C. Their first, they did the first leg was from Newark to Philly, so they got to Philly. They're probably in Philly now.
So
Philly, and then from Philly to Maryland, and then from Maryland to Washington. They ain't playing. They are not playing. They are not playing.
We will leave all that bike riding to them because my butt would be hurting. I don't think I could sit on nothing like that long, brother.
That's right.
I could probably do the riding. I could probably ride the bike, but I don't know about my butt. You know what I mean?
So I'm thinking from Newark to Philly, they probably did Route 1, right? You did Route 1. Ooh, that Route 1.
So listen, we got about 15 minutes. So Ali, you brought up something in the conversation about Biden, with $10,000, on that student debt. So I'm not gonna I'll give my opinion at the end, but I want to ask you and Rountree, right? Particularly around this $10,000 after all that black folk did for him. $10,000 and then $20,000 for people with Pell Grants. Come on, man. Let's keep that.
Don't get me started. Some people want to say, well, at least he's doing something. We still talk about reparations. You talking about $10,000? Come on. Don't get me started. That's a whole nother show. Trust me.
And if you owe $10,000, you don't get it no way. It just go to your bill, which goes right back to the government.
Right. Right. You know how much.
And watch this. And who is the government? Hold on. Who is the government?
The
other thing too is that these dumb Democrats, all due respect, right? All this joker got to do. Young people are going to be one of the most critical voting bases in this next election.
Yep.
And they're disillusioned as hell behind these old heads who do old stuff, who think in the old box. That keep us all outsiders and act like we're supposed to stay there, right? All this joker got to do, all right? All they got to do. Clear the daggone debt. You the goddamn U.S. government. You can afford to do that. You're the military superpower of the world. You could do that. All them young folks will support your party in this critical election where you got these crazy white folks trying to take us to fascism, right? The other thing, instead of tying people up and putting them in cages and whatnot in the border, facilitate those people who want to be here, come in here, make them citizens, and they will all support you. They can't even see that because they're too concerned about too many colored people coming, their white self.
Yep.
Well, but what do you think about the Republican? I mean, so you have on this side the Republicans are appalled that he would even people struggle to pay. And because you were very clear, Pastor Ali, you're talking about people who need that relief. But you have a whole, I mean, they came out strong talking about people struggle to pay for college. Why should they get any relief? So it's coming from both ways. And Zaid, you're saying just go ahead and put the number out there because and like you said, Councilwoman, at least he's doing something. Do you think that the number was 10,000 because he
Then
was
hold
doing?
on. That's what they said. That ain't
Okay.
what I said.
The smallest number he could do.
But do you think that he did a number that he thought that he can get past if it goes to a vote? Because executive order, go ahead.
Well, I think in essence he just felt he could just throw us some peanuts.
Exactly, that's my whole point.
$10,000. Now, I mean, that's a semester. According to what you're studying, he thought he could just throw peanuts and everybody would be happy.
And we're supposed to accept that.
And we're supposed to accept that when people own 50, 60, 70, 90, $100,000 in funds. Yeah. I mean, in school debt. Yeah. Doctors and lawyers and everything. I'm talking about people of color on that right now.
That's right. That's right.
And he think because he gave, it's a semester, gave you 1 semester buy off. Thank you, love. 1 semester buy off. That's 1 semester. You just supposed to celebrate that when you still got the other semesters to pay and you still got postgraduate stuff to go. So, the $10,000 was nothing but a welfare seed.
Yeah.
So it needs to also be, and this is very basic, inflation, 101. Pell Grants used to be the bulk of your financial aid.
Right.
Built to cover the bulk of your tuition. But as inflation rose over the last 30, 40 years, they never increased in a meaningful way the Pell Grant dimension of financial aid.
That's right.
Right? And that has hurt our kids in our community more than any other.
Well, look at love.
That's why all these loans have to come in at this range in our community that we don't see in other communities. Right? So there's a need to increase the cost of education through financial aid. Most of these schools are getting federal funding, right? For whatever things that they do to account for federal funding. There should be some federal funding like they did what there was once upon a time to make it affordable for those who can least afford it. Again, this is something that we haven't done before. We've done it before.
Yep.
Actually, I know in Colin Powell, who's going on to glory, but was a Republican, in his last book, he said he made a statement that he went to CUNY during a time when the taxpayers believed that it was important that everybody got an education. So you could go to CUNY at that time if you fit into this, your household.
He went to school in the 50s.
Right. So, and then he went and he graduated from City, and it was free based on his mother and father's income. But it's no longer. Well, we're back. In the recent years, we're back to that based on your income again. But that was something that it didn't happen for a long period of time.
And you look at what Love said.
Love Galliard is going to be in the next session.
$170,000. But you're paying $14,000 in interest.
Yeah, that's right. I was just
so $14,000 in interest, $170,000. Oh,
that's usury.
$14,000 in interest.
That's usury.
That's usury. That's huge. That's highway robbery. All
that's a loan shark.
And here's the thing that
and the government's the loan shark.
Right, but here's the thing that most people miss: the majority of that debt, right? Believe it or not, and y'all know what I'm getting ready to say is the truth, is on Black women.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Because they're the most educated group in our community.
They make
and for the most part, they're the leaders of the family.
They take a chance.
Yeah,
right. And y'all know this is true. It was Black women who voted by 90% to put Biden in office. And all he's gonna give them is $10,000? Are you serious?
Peanut.
That's how they think. They think that's good for us.
That's an insult.
Are you
Is that a good
serious?
word?
See,
That's
we
great
don't,
word.
we don't jack slap these folks and let them
You don't
know
think it's
that we can't
insulting?
take folks like that no more. See,
Well, I wish Jonathan, because Jonathan's talking to his young people, and I know this was one, and I know the next segment will continue education, but this is one of the things that was big on his topic was
Yeah, but
getting
remember,
back to-
John was busy yelling, "Pay them kids." Remember that?
yes, exactly. This is what
He
I
was
said.
like, "Pay them kids."
Pay them babies. Yeah.
They came out and got them 2 senators elected down in Atlanta, right?
Mhm.
absolutely.
And now y'all gonna be dependent on them to save the Congress. Come on, man! And all y'all gonna give them is 10. That's
gonna be
why I
one of
think what
the
Bernie
most
and
critical
Elizabeth
voting
Warren
blocks
was
in the
saying
next election.
when they
Well,
said
Bernie just,
remove
yeah.
the debt.
Come out wholeheartedly in mass, and they
So,
need to feel like they have a stake in this.
yeah, so Bernie actually did just come out, and then I haven't heard what was Elizabeth Warren, but Bernie was like definitely it needs to be more. What was Elizabeth Warren saying, Ed?
Well, Elizabeth Warren says she's not gonna stop, right?
Okay,
She says she's gonna keep pushing because
for
she
more.
said that right. Because the thing is that you can best believe if they get back to Congress, you can believe they're gonna do everything they can to try and reverse giving folks $10,000.
Right, exactly.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, you know why not go for broke? Hey, Zaid, do you remember when we had I forget the brother's name in charge of Third World Press, but Hakim Green, when he was on, remember brother Hakim was saying that this man could just wipe this debt out. And remember what Mayor Baraka said. Mayor Baraka said during COVID, he said these people was printing money.
Right.
He said they were printing money. He said they literally was printing money.
That's right.
Now let's keep that real.
That's right. That's right. Your queen just chimed. Elizabeth Warren wanted 50,000.
Yeah, and that should have been the bare minimum.
That's right.
That should have been the bare minimum.
That's yes. I'll go with that.
So you got two. You got Warren and
so Donna, we gonna pray for your funky Democrats.
Well, they have to do more, but I think that it's only what elected officials always remember they voted for a term, so they got to get in there and do this work. Because you remember Trump came. I think Trump was raising his right hand and doing executive orders with his left hands because he came in and was doing executive orders like. And it was simple. He was just undoing everything that President Barack Obama had done.
Right-wing perspective, the presidency of Donald Trump is going to go down in history as one of the most massively effective ones for the enforcing of his agenda, even though it was only one term, and even though it was shrouded in criminality. He got done what he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
He went in no compromise, holding no punches, pushing everybody who was on his agenda forward, and they did just one term.
One term. There you go.
And you can best believe, Zaid, if he gets reelected, he gonna pardon himself.
He'll start there. That's right.
Oh, he gonna pardon himself. If he's allowed to drag this out in the courts and keep fighting appeals, and then he end up getting reelected. And listen, don't underestimate the Republicans because that's possible.
Right? One of the things that's also happening, and we need to do a show on this too. The very laws that protected them from stealing elections, they're trying to run campaigns and win state Secretary of State positions, flip those laws so they can do within their states what they couldn't do back in 2020 because it was.
And they've been successful in over 20 states already.
That's right.
Hey, listen, before we run out of time, we got about 4 minutes. We need to, let Roundtree. She has an event coming up. The organization has an event coming up. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, Roundtree? Because I don't want Jonathan to cut you off.
Well, let's just start with tonight. I've been making all this noise. Let's just start with tonight. The mayor's meeting is happening tonight. Y'all know that, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's going on right now.
High School.
6 o'clock is going on as we speak. Brother still got a chance to get over there to the mayor's meeting. But I have several things coming up. We got to Mayor's breakfast coming up. October 13th, October 15th, we have a first um, youth interfaith explosion coming up. I got so much on my calendar. That's October 15th. We're calling all youth. Nobody under 30, and I mean nobody over 30, including me, will be on that stage other than to introduce who's going to be running the show for the whole evening and day from 12 to 7. Those who can speak, who spoken word. My whole thing has been now, we got to make preparation for the next generation. You know, who's going to do Baba Zaid when Baba Zaid is gone? You know, who going to do Ed Riley?
I don't know, you know,
Pastor Ali. You know, we got to be consistent with giving these young people a platform and supporting them and letting, you know, we got to do that. We got to do that. So that's where I am right now.
October 15th, you said?
That's October 15th. That's
Where's
October
it going to be?
It's going to be in Nat Turner Park.
Nat Turner Park.
Nat Turner Park. That's where it's going to be our spot.
Nat Turner was under 30 when he led that amazing uprising.
That's why I put on that flyer, 30 and under.
That's right.
Spoken word interfaith. You can recite the Quran, come on out.
Reverend,
you want to dance, come on out.
We'll talk about him at 8 o'clock.
We're going to start teaching the next generation that our beliefs, some of the things we do might be different, but we're all human beings. We're all part of humanity. We can all exist together. And so that's what we have to do. We have to show them that we can do these things together as the elders, because if they don't see us doing it together, they grow up divided.
The lights need help. Into the room. Keep talking. Jonathan's into the room.
The timekeeper has entered in.
It seemed like you were ending. It seemed like you were like, hey, I'm giving announcements.
I'm good. That's great.
Sally, we got anything else? Did I leave? Bishop Carlton's appreciation.
His appreciation is next month.
Okay.
September
28th on 145 Hudson Street. We've got the Community Love Fest coming up, Chosen Generation Central Ward Clergy. But I know somebody going to talk about 24 hours of peace on this line. I know
September
on the
1st and 2nd. September
2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, September 2nd and 3rd. What did I say?
Oh, 2nd.
That's the guest host, Queen Latifah.
Yeah.
That's Barack and Queen Latifah, 24 hours apiece next Friday and Saturday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. Friday starting at 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. On the corner of Springfield and Blum, in that vicinity. That's where we will be. And we're going to have to, look, the march was good. We're going to keep on marching. We got to be consistent. We've got to be consistent. I found out that it works. I'm getting ready to stop, Jonathan, but I found out that it works. It works, Donna. You can't tell a baby to brush their teeth when they get some one time and think they're going to walk to the sink every morning. The mother of learning is repetition. So we got to keep on, be consistent. We come back 10 years later trying to do the same thing we told somebody about 10 years ago and expect it to just work and wonder why it didn't. We've got to be consistent. And that's what I'm going to do with my time here. I love you, Ed. I love you, Pastor Ali. Shout out to Donna and Baba and those great educated educating.
And Councilwoman and Pastor Ali, make sure y'all join Pop on this Sunday. They're going to be doing a press release in honor of the march on a rally.
The 59th anniversary of the March on Washington.
At 1 p.m.
Okay.
See, that's what I mean about consistency. If Larry Hamm is truly consistent,
he'll be on at 8 o'clock talking about Nat Turner.
That's right. I was with him on Sunday. I went down there Sunday.
She was fired up too. She was sounding like she was baptized in Nat Turner for a little bit. I'm like, oh.
Y'all done taught me a lot. I'm gonna say this before somebody said, where did I come from all of a sudden? Where was I 10 years ago? Oh, I was around. But it don't matter when I showed up, as long as I showed up. Whether it's 10 years later, 15 years later, 5 minutes later, I'm here now, and I'm doing what God has assigned me to do.
We gotta come back and talk about that. They somebody asked, when did you just show? That's the next show. Okay.
Right. Because I know we're not about to start a new line of conversation now. Right?
Watch out.
I'm just saying. I mean, Ed was doing it for the last 2 weeks. Like Ed just got jumping in and like, hey.
Oh, you trying to wrap me out? You trying to wrap me out, Ali?
We good. And of course, they were great questions too, as always. You know, like, oh man,
always. Love you guys.
Ali, Jonathan, wrap me out.
Yeah, peace and love.
That's right, Ed. I snitched on you. Hey, Donna, it wasn't you. It was Ed.
No, that's being consistent. He was making sure that we're consistent.
That's right.
Love y'all.
Love you.
Love you, y'all.
That's the disciples, y'all. What a great show from the disciples tonight.
Love you.
Thank y'all so much for coming through.
And again, we want to also
our brother Haqq.
And we miss Minister Haqq and keep lifting him up.
We
lost. Did we put that across? Did we put that across the banner? He lost a loved one.
No, it's not loss of the loved one.
No, it was
Nation of Islam lost its national spokesperson. The name is Minister Ava Muhammad. She was the only woman ever to be appointed to that post within the Nation of Islam. She has been, from what I just found out, she has been fighting cancer since the 1980s. She's been just fighting hard.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Very important presence under Minister Farrakhan with the regrowth of the Nation of Islam. The late Minister Ava Muhammad. That's the background for that loss.
Yep, and she was one of the early lawyers for the Nation of Islam.
Right, yeah. She got first touch with cancer when she was in law school.
Yep. I mean, and an outstanding civil rights attorney, always stood up for Black people. I've never heard her, ask Black folk for money who couldn't afford her services. She always put it on the line, right? And just an absolutely tremendous helper to the Nation of Islam.
So she's been fighting over 30-something years. Ooh.
Fight cancer.
Yeah, that's what I said. Fighting cancer.
Yeah.
But we do have our next panel fully here.
Hey.
Bring them on.
In as well. And so we are going to try to facilitate that. But welcome, Kaleena Berryman.
Hey, good evening.
Hey, Kaleena.
Good evening, everyone.
What's good, Kaleena? Kaleena's my mama advocate. Y'all know already. Right? If I was a kid again, I'd automatically try to find Kaleena. Kaleena, you got to advocate on my behalf. Hey, Kaleena, I'm not getting enough lunch in the cafeteria. Can you help me out? I'm a student athlete. I need more food.
Let me tell you, I advocate for adults too. Okay. So
all right.
If you need me, you just let me know.
Okay.
Missing you in the studio, sis.
Yes, I was here a couple weeks ago, so I've been getting it together.
Okay, when we get back to the studio, you come with
we got the studio in person.
Yes, you showed,
yeah, that was fun.
Well, and thank you also, because I think that like I always love when you do stuff on education, Kaleena, because that is the subject that is near and dear to you. And you've assembled a pretty impressive panel of a lot of very impressive people.
Yes. School year is starting. And I feel like the first year after the pandemic, we were kind of just trying to get back to school and figure out life again. A lot of us had been disconnected from school, from work. And then some of us were really connected to our children for a long time. And so I think the first year was just, go to school. Let me figure out how to get back into the work groove. And let's just see. But now this is year 2. And hopefully it'll be a year that will be fully in person. And the pandemic will we'll begin to grapple with that in a way where we don't have to close schools. But now we can start to say, okay, what were some of the effects of the pandemic that we need to look out for? What are some of the things that were always happening in education that were unjust or needed to be addressed, but maybe we were able to see them more clearly or care more about them as a result of the pandemic? And, what are education advocates talking about right now? What is in our lens? And some advice for parents as they go back into schools about what they should be paying attention to, because there's a lot has changed. And also as a result of the pandemic, there are a lot of opportunities, a lot of resources, a lot of schools and districts have changed the way that they operate. And we want parents to understand that so that they can take full advantage of those things. So we do have a great panel, and I'll begin to introduce them as we bring them into the studio. First, we have Dr. Leah Owens, who is a teacher, scholar activist who works through her consulting firm, Just Writing LLC, as well as the teacher professional development organization she co-founded called Radical Pedagogy Institute. She credits the many leadership and teaching positions she has held for the development of her anti-racist worldview, as well as her commitment to equity and humanization. To learn more about Leah and her work, you can find her on social media at Black Women Teacher. Hello, Dr. Owens. How are you today?
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you.
Good. We're glad to have you. We also have with us Dr. Sharnee Brown. She's worked as a staunch urban educator for over 28 years. This past year, she served as citywide systems change leader as the chief education officer for the city of Newark. Prior, she was a principal of a high school in Newark for 8 years before starting her own educational consulting services, Indigo and Brown. She received a BS in education and English, a MA in education, leadership, management, and policy from Seton Hall, and achieved her doctorate at SHU. I guess that's Seton Hall University, right? Okay. Her research interests include educational equity for children of color, Blacks, parental agency in 21st century schools. Hello, Dr. Brown. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Hi, good to see everyone. Familiar faces. Good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. We got two more folks. We got Corey Harris. He's a mixed media graffiti artist, grassroots organizer, and the manager of community engagement and advocacy for KIPP, New Jersey, and also has served as an educator along with Dr. Owens and Dr. Brown. His advocacy efforts have global reach, supporting and spearheading projects concerning preferred school choice, disaster relief for children, and social and emotional learning. Hello, Mr. Harris. How are you today?
Greetings, Kaleena. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you for being on All Politics Are Local. And last but not least, Love Marilyn Galliard, MSW, mother, change agent, educator, empowerment specialist, author, born in Brooklyn, raised in Newark. Love graduated from science and headed south, earning a bachelor's degree in biology at St. Augustine. After completing her bachelor's, she returned home with the desire to empower the community. She has a master's degree in social work from Rutgers, and she's currently a child study team member for the Newark Board of Education and an SEL trainer for her own company, as well as the Avid Leadership Institute and other community partners. Welcome, Ms. Galliard. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Right. So, we're so glad to have the four of you. It's a full panel. We don't have all night, so we're going to get right to it. We have, asked the four of you because we just really love who you are as educators, and we know that you care deeply and authentically about our children. And so if you could tell us, as we go back into schools this year, if you could, from your lens, give parents something that they should be looking for, focused on, paying attention to, what would that be? And I will let whoever is ready to go start first.
I don't mind starting, Kaleena. It's such a great panel out here, so I know can't wait to hear the input everyone has. But I would tell parents that I just want them to be mindful of the teacher shortage. I know that a lot of times parenting looks different depending on your ethnicity, your background, and the level of parent involvement looks different. I think with the obvious teacher shortage, we're looking at about 37,000 vacancies, right? That's a reality. We also have vacancies in our own city. So I would just really engage our children and just say, hey, first day of school, how many teachers do you have? How many substitutes are in the room? Just really holding the schools accountable and letting them know that you are aware of what's going on. And also, I think I want to tell parents that there are so many other ways to get engaged. We don't really talk about what other cities are doing. And a lot of times their young people are doing better in other cities because we don't talk about things like tutoring or enrichment programs that they have their young people in. I mean, I remember I used to have a whole bunch of friends, and during the summer, all the parents had their kids in Newark Academy preparing them for the curriculum for next year. So I just think that there's a whole bunch of tutoring out there that we can use to support schools and supplement schools, and just being mindful of what's happening in school systems. And lastly, there's a long laundry list, but I'll just put two down there. Just really engage your child around mental health and trauma. Our young people have and are experiencing a lot, and just checking in with your kids, like how you doing? Or you feel stressed out? And just having some flexibility and knowing our kids might be carrying a lot, might be having a lot of stressors as we face learning loss. Even though we're trying to change this with the think tank, sometimes people unintentionally or inadvertently put on kids more. And I think that we should still be mindful that we are in a pandemic. So just checking in with the mental health and being mindful of resources to supplement learning. With the obvious teacher shortage, would just be two quick things on the top of the brain I would tell parents to look for.
Now, Dr. Brown, we'll get to the think tank in a minute, but thank you for that. But I want to know, I heard, I believe at the Board of Education meeting that there are over 400 vacancies for North Public Schools right now. As a former principal, as the person spearheading the mayor's educational platform, what do you think is the reason for this, that we have this unprecedented amount of vacancies in our school system?
I'm going to go from a teacher's perspective because I think I was a teacher first. I have a love for teaching. I think teachers have an overwhelming responsibility, and I don't think that they have been appreciated, and we never really look at the sacrifice teachers make. I mean, they have a big burden from overcrowded classrooms, doing lesson planning all the time, and really developing relationships with young people. I think that we have not done, and I'm saying this collectively, a good job at affirming teachers. I mean, just even, I think teachers, I think it's about 17.5% salary. That's less than comparable people who have the same degrees. Yeah. So just paying teachers, making them feel appreciated. It's not a profession that you really respect. Even in the teacher shortage, how people are going about it shows that there are respect for it. For instance, I heard in Florida, they're asking military people and their spouses to come in and teach courses. Like everyone can be a teacher. Like we really didn't get an education for this. Everybody can't be a dentist. Everybody can't be a doctor. So I think just a lack of appreciation. I think that's another thing I will tell parents, join in showing teachers appreciation, because it is a sacrifice. It's a heavy burden to have 30 people in a classroom that you are in charge of educating. Like that's a lot. So I just think feeling appreciated, making policies that are flexible. COVID took people off the hamster wheel. They're looking around and just saying, I just have to put my quality of life first, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think teachers are making that decision, unfortunately, and we need to do things to attract them back to the field. So.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Mm-hmm. I just want to break in and say that real quick, Dr. Brown. That's important. COVID caused everybody to stop and pause and reassess.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of changes were made during COVID. I made changes, change is gonna come. So we get it.
Mm-hmm. I would like to step in if that's okay. Thank you again. I wrote my notes down with some ideas, but to start with the first lens that I would discuss is being a partner, that caregivers, those who are caring for children who are in school, to be a partner with the school. Find out who the staff is, find out who the help is, find out who your social workers are, who your child study team case managers are, find out who your guidance counselors are, because that's where the help is. A lot of times problems can be alleviated by not going directly to the principal. I want to speak to the principal. Speak to the support workers, speak to the clerks, find out what's going on, go to the meetings, or just find out who the people are and make a connection. Introduce your child to the support workers. During the spring, there were some orientations, and I was there. And I let the parents know who I was, and the guidance counselors were there. And some parents did tell me the kids had ongoing issues. And even myself, when my daughter enters a new grade or she's going to a new school now, I make sure I know who the counselor is and introduce her to my daughter. If you know your child already has some challenges with new environments or whatever their challenges might be, you might want to, within the first week or so, find who their counselor is and discuss what their challenges are, which would alleviate a whole lot of problems down the school year. Like by November, when things hit the fan, you already will know who your supports are, and you will already have a relationship with those supports. The other thing, like what Dr. Brown says, hey, Dr. Brown, worked with Dr. Brown and Shabazz years ago, when she said about teacher appreciation, I think that it gets lost, teacher appreciation, with all the mundane paperwork tasks that need to be done. It gets lost with their rubric, a very intense teacher rubric, which is an evaluation tool that's used in Newark. And teachers are trying so hard to pass this rubric. And also teachers are not appreciating the way where when they retire, we don't even give plaques as a district. There's no celebration of, for your teachers in your building to give plaques and gift cards and things, all type of celebrations that could be done throughout the school year to show that you appreciate the teachers. It's now just once a year you get a t-shirt and a pen, and it gets hurriedly pushed out just to give it to you without a note from the principal or a note from your department chair or some type of human touch to say, I appreciate you on a personal level. So I think those small things for staff members, people in administrative positions, principals, district leaders, to make a personal effort to tell teachers they appreciate them and show them in some kind of tangible way. That would be very, very helpful. And to loosen up that daggone rubric. So for the parents, I would say become a partner, find out who your supports are. And the thing is, sometimes you have multiple kids at multiple schools and you're working. It's very difficult. But at midnight, when you're sitting down and the kids are all fed and asleep, you can send emails. I tell parents, send me an email, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, send an email, I'll get back to you. So send your emails any time of the night. Make sure you know who your supports are. And for school staff and leaders, please show appreciation to your staff, not only once a year, but throughout the year. Birthdays, sunshine clubs, things like that. People appreciate those things, and you build a team who want to work for you and for the mission of the school when you bring people together in that way.
Thank you, Ms. Gaylor. All right. Anyone else?
So I was just thinking, first of all, I just want to name that Dr. Brown was one of my teachers many moons ago at Irvington High School. I'm not sure if she remembers this at all, but she's been in my heart for many years. And the fact that I'm sharing this space with her right now is a really big moment for me. So I'm really glad to be here. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that.
Wow, that's awesome.
The thing that I really I would like for parents to keep in mind, and it's not to say that some of them don't, but I do think there a little bit more work can be done here. I would really like to encourage our parents to invest as much as they demand, right? I think oftentimes the things that our parents put before us are things that we really should be thinking about. And as a school leader or school support staff, being a part of that team, there's always, as comprehensive as we aim to be, there are always some things where there's going to be some gaps. The gaps might be some because of the district. The gaps might be some because of the school leader or the school's administration, or just things that people who are well-intended just did not think about. I think our parents do a really good job of polarizing those things and bringing them to our attention. And my push is to make sure that they invest just as much as they demand, right? So even when you offer these things up to your school or to your district, make yourself available. Make yourself available to be a part, to have a seat at that table, to provide that resource, or be a part of a community that can offer that up, whether it's your time, your energy, your expertise. Any of those things will be really helpful to us. I think we really have to lean more into being a community school. Gone is the day where you drop your kid off and then you pick them up at the end of the day. But we need you in the summertime. We need you on the weekends. We need you for those late night hours. Like, there's so many things, and there's so much knowledge that our parents have that I think would be really beneficial to us if they offer themselves up as a resource and an extension of what we do in the school buildings as well.
Thank you. All right. Last but not least, Dr. Owens.
Yeah, I mean, so many amazing things have already been stated that I 1,000% agree with, especially with Dr. Brown. Hey, Dr. Brown. I don't want to say hey to everybody, but I know I should be taking up this time. Hey, Ms. Gayer. But especially around the teachers, and again, to Ms. Gaylor's point about the staff. So not only just, you know, how many teachers in the building, but also how many support staff, how many security guards, how many custodians, how many cafeteria workers, because all together that entire community of adults in the building should be those who are supporting all of the students. So what does that look like in your particular school building? I would ask parents to pay attention to. And in looking in that, where are the opportunities for the parents to play not just a supporting role, an engaging role, like Mr. Harris was just saying, but there might be a job opportunity. And if not just for the parent themselves, but maybe someone in their family or someone in their community, because we do need people in these positions to support our students. But really, the second thing that comes to mind that I'd like to elaborate on is teaching. And there's at least 3 key components to teaching: philosophy, pedagogy, and content. So what are your children learning, right? What is the actual content? Do the text, does the information, does it reflect them and their values and their culture, right? Your culture as a family. Pedagogy, right? How are the teachers going about teaching the students? Are they giving them enough time to actually digest the content? Are they giving them timely feedback? Are they just supporting them as learners and learning about who your children are as learners? And philosophy, right? There's a lot of gorgeous buildings in our school districts, beautiful murals, all types of encouraging words and quotes and images of very significant people on our walls. But it can look that way without people actually enacting that from day to day, right? And that's when we're talking about philosophy. What are the values? What are the beliefs of that school? Are people actually living them every day? So I think those are some key things that I would ask parents to pay attention to.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Owens. So I guess it would be a good time to shift to the political response to the impact of COVID-19 on schools. And at this point, it's accelerated learning. We know the governor's office released a guide to accelerate learning. There have been various measures to fill vacancies at the policy level statewide, making teacher recruitment easier. And, you know, that's just the language, making things easier to get those vacancies filled, removing the EDPTA. I think that's the name of the test that teachers have to take in order to get into the classroom. And, you know, accelerated learning is the language. What, in your opinion, is the right way to accelerate learning as we move into this new school year? What is we know what they think it is, but what do you think it is?
I don't mind jumping in, and I just wanted to say hi to Corey. And thank you for blowing up my spot too, right? So I was up here trying to look young, and you just
I do
it. What I wanted to say is it's so many avenues, but I don't want to forget this. One of the best things that I experienced going into Irvington High School, one of the first courses I taught was a remedial course. I thought that was wonderful. The unfortunate thing, it really didn't have a curriculum, but it also kind of helped me develop a curriculum. And so I was able to teach English 1, and then I had another class that's remediation. And even though we don't have those same type of things, I think 2 things, or maybe 3 things we should really think about when we talk about acceleration: understanding that remediation alone causes more need to remediate, right? So we have to make sure that we expose our young people to high quality, grade level content. We can't not expose children when they're the whole world of people, or even maybe a whole state of people who's experiencing something, and we're denying our young people something because we think that they're not ready for it. Exposure. So being able to balance how to support learning while also making sure that it's on grade levels. And I know it's kind of frustrating for teachers because there are gaps sometimes, there are deficiencies, but just being creative and how do I build in, focusing on those, maybe it's some practice fluency people need in math before they can take on a bigger challenge. So just being creative on how to put that in there. But I want to also talk about mental health. And I know, hi Miss Galliard, she's probably better off talking about this, but I do not think we did a great job at, we had the protocols for how to enter the building, how to wear the mask, how to step on a mat, and how to do all this. And we had those protocols, but we really didn't systematically create protocols to help people deal with the trauma we faced and how to kind of like navigate that. And so I just think that this year moving forward, that we should do just listen to the professionals and build some things in systematic to support young people who might be having a bad day, who might have experienced some trauma. There was so much loss. We had really nothing in our schools to kind of help them with that. So I think that just really balancing mental health and creating some systems and giving people access to social workers to really talk through these problems, and also just creating flexibility for all people. I think that the teachers need some support in mental health. I think that everybody just tried to get back to normal, and that was the worst thing we could have said, because we needed a new normal. And what I say often, normal wasn't really serving us. I mean, there's so many systematic barriers that normal kept a status quo. So just really knowing as a teacher, how do I give kids a break? How do I support them? How do I pay attention to them? How do I see when there's some triggers? How do I go to social workers and counselors to get some support? And more importantly, with teachers, understand that remediation alone is not enough, that you have to do both, but you have to be creative. And I think that I can also talk to districts. We don't talk about this anymore, but we got to really start talking about class sizes. We're dealing with trauma and dealing with learning acceleration. We can't pack our classes to 30 kids in a class. That's just not serving us. And we get learning loss from classroom disruptions, right? So just really managing that classroom to something that's sizable and manageable. And so those are the two things I would talk about. But there's more, but I think that's enough for now.
I mean, you bring up a good point. Classroom size needs to be addressed, but yet we have a teacher shortage. Young people need more mental health support, but yet we don't have enough clinicians and social workers to fill the need that's now in the budget. So now districts are budgeting for more mental health support, but there aren't enough professionals. And so, you know, it's this goal to accelerate learning, but the resources, the human resources that we need, we don't have. So, you know, it's just, it puts us in a tough spot as we advocate for more.
Kaleena. Hey, Kaleena, I'm going to piggyback since you mentioned my name, and then whoever else wants to jump on. The first thing, I would challenge that there are enough clinicians. Okay. They have increased the budget over the last 2 years to bring more clinicians, and every year we are getting more clinicians. But the challenge is letting the clinicians be clinicians. When they assemble us, we are put into pegs and told what to do rather than being assembled and saying, what should we do? Right? And so even last year, my school, I work in Newark Vocational High School. Like every other school, had a lot of challenges adjusting to being back in the building. And it wasn't until maybe May we did something like these classes every other Wednesday. I forget what they were called, but these like workshop classes, and they would split the kids up into mixed grade levels. And I was called in to do one with the teacher to co-teach, and it was all about social emotional learning. And they had these programs for the teachers to teach who are not familiar with this. So the lead was like a math teacher and a gym teacher. They would at least have a platform to go on. And so because I'm versed in it, it was a wonderful opportunity to connect with students. And it was a really good, productive opportunity throughout the whole school. I hope we can start again in September, but those are the type of things that need to be done, pushing forward, breaking away from traditional accelerated education, trying to pack all the subjects in and saying, let's mix some social and emotional learning, some emotional intelligence, some relaxation, allow the children to express themselves, and allow the teachers too, because I got to flex and talk about my life, and it was therapy for us too, you know. So it was a wonderful opportunity for us to relax the curriculum. Oftentimes when teachers have trouble, they come and tell me about it. I know I'm a case manager, but I'm still social worker to the whole building. I always tell them, stop teaching, put your class in a circle and just ask the kids how they're doing. And that works when they get it, when they actually have the courage to do it and tell their supervisors, I need to do this, because they have to have the courage to do it, and they have to have a supervisor who will not penalize them for breaking a day of instruction, to do a circle and say, hey, how you doing? You know, my name is Miss Jones. I'm from here and there. This is what I do. Tell me about you. How was your day? And that breaks things down. And that may need to be done in every classroom, maybe once a month, that the teacher will not teach and say, hey, how you doing? Just for a start. But also when the district is bringing in all these clinical, high level, highly trained, highly skilled professionals, let us do what we do. I think last year when we got back in, like Dr. Brown said, we went right into trying to be normal and get back and do all these protocols, but it was too much of trying to have an exact science to this. We need to take a step back and allow teachers and staff to be very creative in how we share education, how we educate students. There's creative ways. There's one teacher who uses Marvel. I think there's two. There's an elementary teacher, and there's one at my school, uses all the Marvel characters and makes connections with all the Marvel verse. You know, things like that. Allow the teachers to be creative and take a look at how much we're putting on teachers to say we have to meet 20 markers every day. Our president of the union, John Abagon, I'm part of the union too, he is pushing behind the scenes to say we need to take a few responsibilities from all staff so they can get the work done. What can we take away that's not essential? So reduction of all the paperwork requirements, allow teachers to be creative, and allow teachers to at least once a month to do a circle and say, how you doing, kids? That would be very
Love, first, just to let me jump in for just a second. We worked, we not only went to school together, we also worked at Seton Hall Upward Bound together.
Oh,
and one of the things that I always was wondering whether or not actual schools would do is something that we did from the time I was in high school and you were in high school at Seton Hall Upward Bound, discussion groups. Every day at Seton Hall Upward Bound, they called them like D groups, discussion groups, right? Where there would be someone who just listened, right? And from those discussion groups, they were able to see whether a kid needed glasses or not, right? What are some of the other stuff going on? How to prevent violence, right? Like there was beef going on, they can prevent that. And it was built into the school day. So I think what you're talking about at vocational, I'm always like, why don't they do that during the normal course of the school year anyway, from a long time ago?
And Kaleena, I just want to talk about because Ms. Giller hit it on it so perfectly. We are so bent on being traditional. We haven't adjusted the schedule. There's so many things we can do without, even within the shortage. And I think that Ms. Giller just talked about being creative. And Jonathan, I used to work for Upward Bound too in pre-college. And I think that we did more SEL as a teacher before COVID. That we were doing this stuff of academy check-ins every week. And then when COVID came, we didn't even bring any of that back. I think we focused more on SEL prior to COVID, and we needed it for after or during COVID. And so just let's get back to those things that work with children. And I do not think it's a break from instruction. I think that those are soft skills, learning how to cope, learning how to have people skills, learning how to do that is just as important, if not more, than those other academic touch points. And I know a lot of educators would be upset with that. But if our knowing what the trauma does to the brain, if we don't do that, we're not going to get through what we're trying to get through. So
yeah, Kaleena, can I add here? I think since the buzz phrase now really is accelerated learning, I think we really do need to take some time to really unpack what that means to our parents.
I'm glad you said that, Court, because I just for the benefit of this audience that may not know that language, y'all need to do that. Go ahead and do that, son. You right on.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, totally. So I think when it comes to accelerated learning, it's really about moving forward into grade level content with support. And I think that last piece is really important. Grade level content with support, prioritizing high level skills and content, and creating teaching and learning pathways. Another important word, pathways. Support pathways, determining the most efficient and effective way to help students experience grade level learning based on where they are today. And I think if we don't really spend time really unpacking that language, then I think the phrase accelerated learning can be very off-putting and very scary for teachers, students, and parents alike. Because at first glance, when you hear accelerate, you hear quick, right? And the accelerated learning really
Or you hear
there.
advanced and everybody's not advanced. It can
Sure,
be
sure.
intimidating.
And, there can't be a popcorn approach to this. I would argue that educationally speaking, we haven't even really seen the effects of COVID and the pandemic yet. We'll be experiencing that many years to come.
Absolutely.
So we cannot be so urgent and so quick with the solution that we miss really big nuggets that we need to be focusing on. Just yesterday, on Netflix, there was a movie released called Katrina Babies. And I spent a lot of my work early on when I was a collegiate kind of helping out during Katrina and things like that. And I watched this documentary that came out yesterday, and it was specifically talking to children who are now adults that were directly impacted by Katrina. And what was common throughout all of their narratives was many of them were saying that no one had ever asked them how they felt about what they experienced.
Wow.
And every single one of them said, this is the first time that I've actually talked about any of these things. And the level of trauma that these kids were living with, because people didn't ask the important questions at such a trying time in their lives, still continues to affect them to this day. So in addition to us talking about accelerated learning, some things we don't need to accelerate. And that is really taking the time to make sure that we're not using language with our students that suggests that the pandemic is over.
Right.
Because our kids, their families, their households, economically, physically, and even educationally, we're still experiencing the impact and will be experiencing it for many more years to come. In addition to that, I think when we think about accelerated learning, I think we need to broaden. I think we need to, one, work on teacher retention, as we mentioned already, but we also need to work on making sure teachers have the right placement and that they stay there for a while. And I mean in the school buildings that they're teaching in, I also mean in the grade levels that they're in. Because in order for you to really understand the pedagogy in a way that would really make sense, in order for you to really understand the kids psychosocially, you get more when you stay in a grade level for a while. You know better how to access the students. You know how to differentiate a little bit better. You can start to identify trends with what skills the kids are coming with versus what they're not coming with. But when we move teachers around year after year, when they start to get the hang of it, they're already somewhere else. And teachers are learning at the same rate that students are learning. So I can't really become an expert in this practice, if you will, if I keep being moved about. And there also needs to be a lot more cross collaboration between teachers from the prior grade level and the current grade level and where the kid needs to go thereafter. Because if we're planning together, we can not just be a third grade teacher, but I'm a teacher that has access to second grade, third grade, and fourth grade skills. What the research has shown us recently is that the kids who are moving the least since we have returned to school are actual middle schoolers. K through 4 is making some of their goals and they're growing. But middle schoolers have barely moved. And high schoolers, it's very slow, almost minimal. And when we're talking about middle schoolers and high schoolers, they only have a few more years with us. So if they're really not gaining and they're really not growing over the next few years, we know that this is the impact is so much greater, right? Considering what they have just experienced. So for their growth not to be what it needs to be, I think these are all things that we need to comprehensively be thinking about on a continuum.
Thank you.
Yes. So, I mean, connected to so many of the points already made, we also cannot presume that teachers know what learning acceleration means. So there needs to be time, right? Embedded professional development in the actual school day, not just outside of, right, our work hours as educators. There needs to be time in the school day itself to make sure that educators and teachers in the district understand what it means to accelerate a student's learning, and to all the points that have already been made and the definition that's been given. And to Ms. Gaylor's point about being creative and allowing individuals, the teachers to be creative and professionals, and the education workers to be creative and professional, there's a couple of things. So when I was a teacher at Central High School, I really appreciated, again, to Dr. Brown's point about being creative with the school day, that we had something called Big Tuesday, and that there were convocations in the morning. So although I wasn't able to see exactly what the students were doing, I know that they were engaged as a school building, as a school community, right? Because schools are social environments. And then as the teachers, we were getting professional development. So it was beyond just the days that are already in the calendar for the school district. And then when I was a teacher at Barringer, without a doubt, and to this very day, I say the best professional development that I was a part of was when it was actually teachers in the district leading all of the sessions. I will never forget that professional development, as opposed to compared to a professional development where I learned how to create banners using Microsoft Publisher, and I'm definitely dating myself. But I mean, as a new teacher at that point in time, I kind of came in with those sort of computer skills, right? Because that was just something that was generational that I was learning. So it was definitely a complete waste of my time. But when I was actually leading a session for my peers and was able to get feedback from my peers and make connection with my peers in other schools and collaborate with them on curriculum, again, across schools, not even just inside of a school, it was such a rewarding experience. And so these are just a particular examples of things that of how it could look if we really reimagine what we want to do.
That's such a good point, Dr. Owens. It reminds me of a conversation we were having in the think tank, Dr. Brown. And we were talking about, accelerated learning, and we kind of mentioned that maybe the accelerated learning shouldn't necessarily be the young people, because they show up ready to learn. Young kids come to school, and if you provide, they will learn. But maybe there's a need to accelerate our learning, the learning of practitioners, those of us who do youth development, those of us who are teachers in the classroom. And part of that is finding the brilliance among us, because I think Newark has some of the most phenomenal everything. So finding the brilliance among us and having us to teach one another and share best practices and strategies so that we are learning. It kind of gets to what Corey was saying too, what Mr. Harris was saying as well. So, I wanted to lift that up, Dr. Brown, and talking about the work of the task force. And if there's any other nuggets or jewels that are coming out of the accelerated learning, Mayor Baraka's accelerated learning task force, that you want to share what you're hearing so far.
Yeah, I just, so many points were so awesome. And I just want to remind Dr. Owens, that's when I met her. I actually was at that PD, and you did an outstanding job. And I went back bragging about the young teachers at Barringer. So just want to give her a shout out. But I want to just talk about the mayor's think tank. It is actually called the Mayor Ras Baraka's 2020 Newark think tank around learning acceleration. And I don't want us to get so caught up in the language acceleration that we think that we're just trying to do something that's not already attainable. The first principle of learning acceleration is equity for all. Right. And so acknowledging that part of the work that learning acceleration promises is that students who are systematically marginalized and don't really have access to grade level content, we're not even really talking about advanced, but grade level content, are Black and brown children. So learning acceleration is a whole strategy. And I want to just say to Mr. Harris's point, part of it is getting the think tank allows everyone, parents, teachers, students, social workers, all of them to come together. The next meeting is September 7th. If people are interested, I just want to give out a quick number, 973-373-0484, 973-373-0484. The next one is September 7th, and I invite everyone to
put that
come.
number in the chat.
Oh,
the number in the chat, we'll put it in.
Oh, sure, definitely. 973-373-0484. If people are interested, and they also can check the mayor's page on Facebook to get the information on how to go to the next one, but it's September 7th. The reason why we have this think tank, because part of the learning acceleration strategy is exactly what everyone's talking about. It's allowing teachers they're even promoting depth of learning as opposed to pacing in a curriculum. So we get to rethink the scope and sequence. We get to rethink the schedule. We get to embed SEL. It's much more than just saying, hey, instead of remediation, I'm going straight to, and I'm just making up something Shakespeare. It says learning acceleration, but it's really about rethinking the current structures that marginalize certain people, and really getting people to be creative on how to address the realities of now. And so I just want to make that clear, that that's what the think tank is about, and all stakeholders are invited. It's not just for administrators, it's for teachers. We want more counselors. We're going to start with the NJDOE's first principle, and that's providing mental health support for all, that's in all educators, students, parents. And I think that that's important to say, because what traditional education missed, learning acceleration is the strategy, specifically for Newark, is the strategy that we're going to do, is to bring all these points that's being made and make every educational institution in Newark embed some of these practices, so we don't have students disengaged because in relevant learning, we're not packing the curriculum that we don't even teach kids well. And more importantly, learning acceleration is all about support. And so I just want to make everybody aware that that is not putting every student in AP classes, but it's just making sure that it's a really complex strategy where we're looking at how traditional education is not really serving the majority of the population, and how we can change that. So again, I invite everyone to come September 7th. It's really in depth, and it goes to Kaleena's point, the collective genius in that room, unimaginable. And I'm talking about input from all levels, and we'll be surprised. We shouldn't even be surprised, but parents and students have been informing that work, and they're so clear about what they experienced. And it goes back to Mr. Harris's point. We're asking them how it was, like, how was it, experiencing COVID, and they're having those conversations. And so we don't want to wait 10 years after the phenomenon, but that's what the think tank is pretty much doing.
Go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to throw out very quickly. Newark Public Schools is rolling out a debate curriculum that could be taught at any school. That's the first unit was already rolled out, and I really do think that just a form of debate is kind of like intellectual play, and it fits so many different levels of student, and there's so many things embedded in it, where the student becomes self-motivated to break down text that's above their grade level, to understand argument from an internally driven point of view. So I think that some of that game play becomes important, because as someone I taught debate over the summer. I'm teaching the last part of a summer course tomorrow, and I taught some stuff in Iowa early to kids in Newark and some kids from elite schools around the country. And one thing that is universally true is that kids are tired, right? Yeah. And what we thought of in terms of giving a ton of work and a bunch of kids, even the kids who were yes, I'll do it. They're nah, you're not. And collectively, they're You're not doing this to us. You are going down, right? Like, and I think that there's going to be some level of very normal pushback among students and teachers that are going to force us to like be more efficient. So scale back some, right? To be
willing to adjust.
I think that's going to be in the conversation.
Jonathan, can I ask Kaleena a question or a statement or real quick? So I just want to propose that every fifth Friday that Kaleena gets to do an education panel for starting in 23, because you cannot get all this in an hour. This is too much information. So the next fifth Friday is October and then in December. So I hope you come back on one of those fifth Fridays and take 2 hours at least, or the whole show, because a lot of information. But I heard Corey talk about schools as a safe haven. And then I also heard him talk about the mental health impact has not yet been fully felt. And I just think that it's important, and we have to keep saying it. Last Friday, we had the pleasure of having your superintendent, our superintendent on, and he was talking, and I always ask him the question when I come on, how many students graduated with an associate's degree? And I just want to throw that in that next time that you guys have to keep saying that, because that is 147 students you guys in Newark graduated. And that's, a real savings to a person's pocket. And I think young people are able to do it because they're so bright and full of energy. And the professional development, when I worked at CUNY, they actually had a budget for professional development, and it was very, very important. And it's so nice to have a mayor who was an educator, who understands, how important what you guys are doing. So it's just not, and so you can mesh the board and the city together, and things will get done at a more cohesive pace. So keep doing what you're doing, but I hope we get you regularly on the fifth Friday, because this is a lot of great information.
Yes, Donna, I agree. Absolutely. And, not in addition to great information, they've been dropping strategy. I've heard so many answers to the problems that have plagued us for a long time that keep us from tapping into the true brilliance of our students. And I know one thing, Corey, when you started to talk about how young people said that no one asked them how Katrina impacted them, one of my most meaningful projects was when COVID-19 first began. And young people, we had them for the summer at the Abbott Leadership Institute. We had them spend the entire summer researching and documenting the impact of COVID-19 on their lives and the different parts of their communities. So they talked to those who worked at the morgue. They talked to those who worked in hospitals. They talked to educators, to parents, and they became the storytellers. And it was called the Pandemic Project. It's available on the Rutgers North website, and Dr. Owens was a partner in that. She led them through the journalism aspect of that process. And so when I hear all of you, I heard we need we need social workers to be able to do their job. They have the answer and they understand what young people need, but they're not able to do that. Corey talked about teachers being able to speak to each other in the year before and the year after a young person comes to them.
Continuity.
Leah talked about being able to have peers teach peers. You all have shared so many solutions to some of the challenges that we have, but yet these are not the things that are being pushed. I listened to a presentation from the district on their approach to mental health and SEL, and it had a lot to do with like Rethink Schools, and it had a lot to do with 3 tiers of support, but the understanding and the cultural aspects just weren't there. So politically, what should we be doing to make sure that the solutions that we know need to happen are happening to make schools more just, period, for our children? What do we need to do? Like the mayor, Dr. Brown, he is committed to education in Newark, but he's not the superintendent. But what power do we have? What power do we have politically to make things happen so that we have more voice in what happens in our schools?
Kaleena, you know what we don't do, Kaleena? There are no satisfaction surveys for the district, from the parents, the Google Doc, they send everything else, and to create an automatic scorecard. Google not just Google Docs, it's the Google, what do you call it? Satisfaction survey. It'll give you a graph. It'll break it all down. You can just put like 5 questions and send it district-wide and give yourself a report card. How about that? Each school can have a Google Doc report card, but I have yet to see some form of a report card so that the community at large can say what they think about what the district thinks is important versus what the city, the parents, the students thinks important. You know, because what happens is, excuse me, Kaleena, what happens is the mayor and various outside people will say to the district, we want to make sure you bring stakeholders, family members, staff members, and then they get cherry picked, right? And we're still like, well, wait a minute, didn't they have people on that panel? How are we still in the same place? So if we did actual surveys so that we can get a real assessment of what's going on, that would be much more transparent.
But Ms. Galliard, isn't our survey the school board? Right? If the school board is responsible for our schools, and
they need a survey too. They need a survey too for the school board. Right? No one is, but we are not able to get feedback even for the school board. There's no survey to say at the end of every June to say to the community, here are your 5 questions about your school board. Right. There's no transparency to say.
I can't go without. It's the survey is the election. I'm sorry, I just can't. The survey
is supposed to be right.
It is not. It's not because people are guided into who to vote for. It is not.
But it can't just be on the 3rd Tuesday of April, though, right? There's so much work that has to be done from the 3rd Wednesday of April going into the next year's 3rd Tuesday. So it can't just be about election day itself. So there definitely has to be a lot of organizing that needs to happen. And I think so, right, in terms of that a term political, right? What do we need to do, right? Political is about having power. And I think to Jonathan's point, when he's talking about the students, when they collectively said, no, you're not going to do this to us. And I don't suggest that parents, teachers, students, right, collectively coming together, just say no, but say no and say, and then we're going to do this. So all of that takes time and commitment to think through what it is that we want to see, what is our actual vision from the community. But there's nothing's going to change without organizing. Like, it absolutely has to happen. And it's just, things are happening. For example, the Alliance for Newark Public Schools, to your point, Love, about outside entities doing, kind of report cards. We did a report card. And we actually were able to kind of get into the schools, but we would need more support and to have a true partnership with the district to actually execute that and be able to use the resources from communities and not just the district itself. But I mean, to the point about, report cards of the board, organizing needs to happen, and the report card is the day of the election.
Yeah, can I add too that I think oftentimes like we said, in terms of the talent is there in terms of like the think tank, and just how Dr. Brown told us about the task force that's happening for accelerated learning. I think that we have the meeting spaces when we come up with the strategy, but I think in those spaces, we also need to come up with the next steps.
Right.
We need to come up with like, okay, we have this here. This is a really good nugget. This is a golden nugget. But how do we now turnkey it? Right. And I just think about, I mean, I'm sure maybe we could all agree in our own professional careers, I can create a really good document. And I don't mean that in a facetious way. Like, I can really think about all of these resources, all these really good ideas that come from these different places. But sometimes I've had struggle with the implementation of said thing. Right. So in those same meetings, we need to think about who's responsible for this district, who's responsible for this school. Do they have the information that was discussed here? Are you going to be directly responsible? If you're not, who is directly responsible? Are you going to turnkey this to the principal and to the leadership staff at the school? Are you going to sit in on PDs? Are you going to host professional developments? Are you going to provide feedback? Are you going to come back to this next meeting and talk about what we need to continue to do henceforth? So I think those are the types of pieces where we kind of get a little lost in the sauce. I would even argue to the extent and degree that in terms of that, that's not even necessarily political. That's just next steps, right? So I think in our planning, we also need to be intentional about who are those people who are going to turnkey this. and then start a process where we communicate regularly about what those next steps look like.
Yeah, and who are the best people to bring this forward? Because like even to Ms. Gaylor's point, right? Great ideas. We should have parents should be able to answer a report card about their educational experience. Brilliant idea, but understanding, okay, who can actually make that happen, and who do we need on our side as an ally to present the solution, and how much power do we need to have as a community, because education is political. Even something like that is highly political. And so how many people, parents in Newark, would it take, to convince or make sure that this happens when politically it could be challenged? So, unfortunately, every single change that ever happens in this city, even debate becoming a part of the curriculum, that was political. It had a political process. Introducing more African-American studies into curriculum had a largely political process. And so we have to begin to educate ourselves in the politics of education and who makes what decisions and who are the folks politically, even if they don't necessarily make that decision, have the power to help us to make it happen.
I just want to say, and I think to Mr. Harris's point, like, I think that's part of the process. And this is also going to Ms. Giller's point. A lot of people have done surveys. I was thinking of Newark Alliance because that was the last survey that I talked to them about, that I heard in process. And I remember when they had the superintendent on, and he actually, they gave him the findings and he had to talk about it. And I also want to say that the beginning of the year in September, my office, OCC, Office of Comprehensive Education under the mayor's office, we surveyed leaders, young leaders throughout the district, because I do want to remind people that Newark is even made up of more than Newark Board of Education. And I think what the think tank is doing is inviting all institutions on all levels, early childhood, because some of the same challenges we're talking about is even happening with our pre-K population, all the way to college level, because while we're having conversations about the think tank, we're also holding teacher preparation programs accountable to help do some of that work, to kind of offset that work before they get into the building, right? That's a lot of responsibility just to put on just the district to do it. I think teacher preparation programs have to be held accountable. So again, I invite you guys to attend the think tank, because this is the process. These are the processes that's actually happening. And we want to support all levels, and carrying that out is not to be a document that sounds good on paper, but we, looking from the mayor's perspective, because the mayor actually talked about it at the first think tank, he's the one who gets every young person who's incarcerated, every person who's shot. All that data comes to him. We're trying to impact Newark and change some of the systematic barriers that allows us to lose children to criminality or things like that. So this goes beyond just the paper. And I just want to give a shout out to Baba Zaid. I mean, he remembers me when I was a really, really young girl, but this is activism in play. This is about changing systems and barriers, because we can't keep talking about gaps and lack and things like that. We have to do something radical about it. And I think we are in a position of power that people are in leadership who believe in change. Right. I sit at that table with a history of activism, understanding that these systematic traditions are hurting us. And we have to think radically and collectively hold one another accountable. And if it means doing a PD to principals and not necessarily leading it, but getting the right social workers to lead it, right? That is an easy task for us to do. And we have a collective genius in Newark that's unparalleled. So
we want to thank you all so much for all that you have added. You've given us, I mean, I could just get the transcript of what was said, and we could just put it in the book, right? So just thank you all for your thought leadership and for sharing some time with us. I'll turn it over to Jonathan to close this out, because there's another segment.
So Jonathan, before you close, I just want you guys to know that this is on YouTube, this is on Facebook Live, and on Periscope, so you can repost it on your page, and you can share this information, and it's it's available. And Dr. Brown, the information that you gave, if it's in the chat, and then we can also post it on the All Politics Are Local page, so people, when they go back and look at it during the week, they'll have access to that information. Thank you. And anything you, Dr. Owens, any information, just send it over to Jonathan, and we'll make sure that it gets posted on the All Politics Local page. Hey, hi.
Dr. Brown, what up, dog? Dr. Brown. I'm hearing you talk about being a young child in the struggle, coming up under Baba Zaid, under his mentorship and guidance. That's my peer in terms of the activist world, Dr. Brown, and we got so much jewels from Bob.
You both brought a lot of pride and joy to me. Both of
man, to see this young lady right here just do so many tremendous things beyond anybody's imagination in 1989. I ain't gonna date you. That's how.
They were all babies back then.
Now it's Hakim, or sister just can't be young in here. Oh my goodness.
We love you, Dr. Brown. We love you.
You're right.
Love's good to see you. Love was with us when we first started shutting the streets down with the violence, right? With all of her passion, right? And Leah, I'd be like, please don't leave the classroom. Leah, I know you want to organize into the classroom, baby. Corey, I used to work with your father, son.
Wow. Now
I was looking you up.
It probably wasn't my dad, but we'll talk about that a little later.
And Love, I also went to Shore University too. You went to St. Aug. I went to Shore U. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we definitely are going to be doing this. We love that Kaleena is a regular now and is co-producing and putting out these different segments, and we will have to do clearly a lot more of that. It's an honor.
She needs 2 hours. They was pushing. They were like a train going down the tracks. They were gone.
Yep.
You must have just like, y'all need to get on there, say this. So they were
Jonathan, can I push in here for just 2 seconds, please? I want parents to make sure they download Power School in Google Classroom to their own phones so that you can get the updates and the beeps when your child needs to do an assignment or a grade comes out. Please, so that you won't be in the dark. Power School and Google Classroom on your own phone as a parent.
Love, put that in the chat so we can post it up on the board.
Okay. I will.
All right, and thank you so much. We are definitely going to do this again. Hopefully, we can get you all back on again on on a continuing basis, because these education conversations they're only going to get more intense as the year goes on.
How about October 29th? That's a 5th Friday for 2 hours.
Yes. So that we're always scheduling those 5th Fridays anyway, but we might be doing some stuff even before that. So
okay.
Right,
well, I just want to say that we're going to have an equity conference that day, so you can come to the equity conference in the morning, and then we can jump on at night to sum it up. It's also coming
that's excellent. So yes, the 29th of October. That is one of those dates. Even if we're going to have some more dates leading up to it. So thank you so much.
2 hours, Clint.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Take care. All right, so that is another segment of All Politics Are Local, America's number one radio talk show. Hakim Green, don't go anywhere, man.
Where he go?
I got somebody tried to call me. Had to just.
Okay. This little segment going out.
Your whole box just went black. He was like black.
Now the Queen Mother tried to enter. Let her know that she can get in now. Whenever we have 10 people, it doesn't let anyone else in. Right?
Okay.
So now that we transitioning segments, she can come in, and Larry can come in
too.
Oh Lord!
So while we're waiting for them to come in, it seems like there's an event coming up with some of my favorite people in it, right? Like, Faith Evans was one of my first wives.
Yeah,
Queen Latifah. I was trying to make Queen Latifah a wife, and back in the mid '90s, right? But I don't know, man.
So you in the
This is my youth. It's like, oh my God, these are wonderful people. They're going to be in Newark again.
This is your chance.
That Faith Evans thing that you had going on, was that before or after Biggie?
Before, during, after. I love Faith Evans. And the thing is, she got me when I heard her sing. I was like, oh my God. She has the most pure and beautiful voice.
Oh my God.
And Haqq, what's her status now? What's her status now? She's available?
Say it again.
What's Faith's status now? Is she available, or should she go to the town? We need to let Jonathan know.
You got you. Just, do the.
Try not to keep up with those.
Okay.
I just listen for the music.
We get some feedback somewhere.
So is it the old thing? If you're not talking, put yourself on mute.
Now everybody's on mute. Well, Baba, you were talking about Black August. You've been talking about Black August since July. And you've been breaking down Black August. You've been talking about things that have happened that were very important. Can you talk to us about about the show as we welcome the Reverend Queen Mother Amakhu?
Let's do several things. First, I don't know where Demo is. He's supposed to come on with her, and he usually is here. So I want to apologize for his absence in his stead. But Black August, just backing up. Black August is a special period that was initiated by the Black Panther Party and some prison activists who were in the California prison system in the aftermath of the deaths of George Jackson and Jonathan Jackson in 1970, 1971. Precisely speaking, it was meant to build a support for the burgeoning prison justice movement that George Jackson personified in a very powerful way, both theoretically and in practice, in a way that was supremely profound, right? And to mobilize support for our political prisoners, right? And our political prisoners were just going into the system tragically during that time, right? Also, in the month of August, just happens to be one of the most pronounced periods where have been some of the most profound demonstrations of sacrifice and struggle that has taken place. George Jackson happened to be assassinated on the anniversary of the epic Nat Turner Rebellion. And, 2 weeks ago, we had Khalifa Muhammad, whose father bought up the land on which that rebellion took place in order to preserve it for our community, right? An incredible gesture that brother, right, saw, recognized, and seized to preserve one of the material bases of one of the most important expressions of our ancestors absolutely refusing to accept slavery, right? Khalifa also said something that was important. The mic dropper of his session was this, is that many of us who look at the whole question of the Civil War through a radical lens, we always say that the real beginning of the Civil War was with John Brown's attack on Harper's Ferry, that John Brown was attacking the United States government as a slave government to end slavery and to expose the government for the fraud that it was with its hypocrisy. Khalifa went further. He said that if we really look back at the Nat Turner Rebellion, and if the Civil War ultimately became about slavery, Nat Turner's uprising might be the real beginning, right? So that was the mic dropper. We have today, right, two important guests. One has been here for the first time, one who's here on a very regular basis to lift up the importance of Nat Turner and what that means to us ancestrally, historically, and the name of our show is All Politics Are Local, what that means for us locally, right? Ademo Chunga, Lawrence Hamm, the chair of the People's Organization for Progress, his organization has co-hosted an anniversary celebration and observation of the Nat Turner uprising at the Nat Turner Park. It was mentioned in the last segment in the very passing way, but Newark, New Jersey has a Nat Turner Park. We dared in the city of Newark to name something out of one of our most courageous ancestors who took one of the most courageous steps to take on white supremacy in one of the most courageous ways. And that ancestor was also one of the most feared by the beacons and the protectors of white supremacy. That's an important local expression. You also happen to have a revered teacher and faith leader and artist amongst us who happens to have a bloodline or several bloodlines tied to this particular ancestor. And she's right here serving us in Newark in a very uplifting way that speaks very much to that tradition. So we have two arms that we want to try and bring together with the few minutes that we have here, right? So let's start. Ademo has jumped on. I'm glad you're here, right? And y'all hear me say Ademo. That's Brother Larry. You know, that's his African name that the great Amiri Baraka gave us. And those of us who go back that far, we still do that. We still call him that, right? So when I hear that, I want y'all to hear that. And Queen Mother, I want you to actually introduce you to this audience yourself, because you wear several very important hats, and some of those hats are hats that are not terribly familiar to most of us. From your work as a Kemetic priestess to your traditional work in traditional African faith, right? And your creative work and so on. You wear so many hats, and you're so multi-talented. We want you to introduce yourself to your satisfaction, so we do you justice. And we absolutely want to lift up your ancestral ties that are so important and inspiration to all of us. Ademo, I'm going to start with you. How did Newark get a Nat Turner Park?
Well, first of all, thank you, Brother Zaid. And I'm glad to see Donna, and I'm glad to see the most progressive rapper on the scene right now, Brother Hakim. I don't know, brother, if you've been hearing me singing your praises.
He definitely has.
Thank you, but I'm gonna yield, Zaid. Since I've been on before, I'm gonna yield and let Sister Queen Mother jump in, and then I'll circle back behind her and answer your question if you don't mind.
There's a method to my madness. You done messed me up now, right?
All right.
But all right. That's
all
right.
right.
And that's love, honor, and respect. So, Queen Mother, why don't you first introduce yourself, the levels of your work, and then let's get into your ancestral ties, just to getting feedback. To your ancestral ties.
Peace and blessings to everyone. Thank you so much for having me on. And it's an honor and privilege to be here on All Politics Are Local. And thank you, Brother Chairman. For those of you who know me, I'm a member of People's Organization for Progress, and I call Brother Lawrence Hamm Brother Chairman. And usually when we are out, people hear me say, Brother Chairman, that's me. That's how I refer to Brother Lawrence Hamm, who I greatly respect. And of course, Baba Zaid, you know, you and I are colleagues. We are considered the old heads here on the artist scene here in Newark, the old head artists. And the young bloods look up to us. And for that, I'm grateful to everyone else here on the panel. I say thank you for having me, and I give you all much respect. Thank you so much for having me here. I sit here in the grace, honor, and wisdom of the ancestral bloodline that I represent. And I pour libation to them every single day, as is traditional. I am very pleased to be a cultural ambassador of our ancestors and to teach those who are coming up. And even those who are our age, we are considered elders now, even though I'm 62. And even though there are those who are older still, there are many who are not aware of our cultural traditions. And so as an ambassador who has an opportunity to be able to share our traditions, it is a privilege, but it is also a responsibility. I heard Councilwoman Roundtree speak about the fact that it is what we are supposed to do, and she's absolutely right, because the fact that you know, we're up on deck, and there are many of us who are not here now. You know, we just did our Nat Turner observation recently, and we had to call the names of many who did not make it this year. There were many who transitioned, and we've gotten so accustomed to hearing them share their stories, and now they're not here. And so we have an obligation to be able to tell our own history and to tell our own stories and to pass on the traditions and be able to tell in our own voices exactly what is the truth. And so as an elder high priestess in the Kemetic tradition, and also someone who has been installed as a Kemetic queen mother by my Atefnit Shur, my godfather, Grandmaster Hamm, in the Kemetic tradition, the man who put the Ankh in my hand, the man who recognized me for all of the work I was already doing as a cultural teacher, passing on our cultural traditions to the children, to the women, and also to families. The work I was doing, teaching our youth in lockdown, working with Crips and Bloods, working with young people who had killed children. I didn't even know it. They were just our children as far as I was concerned, teaching art to them as a way of being able to save lives. It was truly a humbling thing for him to install me as a queen mother, even though I was reluctant to do it, because as far as I was concerned, it just meant more work. It means that you have to be even more responsible in the way that you carry yourself, because of the fact that people look up to you. And I was fine with the title Amakhu, which means one who is respected, one who is revered, but it is also the title that we use in our community for minister, one who serves the people and one who serves the Netsheru, the limitless ones, the gods, goddesses. That was fine for me. I was still trying to get to Broadway, okay? A lot of y'all know that I'm an artist. I've been a professional artist since the age of 15. And that is a blessing and a privilege that I was able to raise my children as a working artist, and the fact that they were not in need. It was never necessary for me to go to the bread line. I was able to be a working artist. So I still had my goals with that. But then to be given the title of Queen Mother on top of that just seemed like it was just another burden. But I have to say I've grown into the title, and I recognize the fact that following in the footsteps of Queen Mother Moore is, and as an activist, is the ultimate privilege in being able to be a Queen Mother. A lot of people don't realize this is not a dowager position, that the Queen Mother title came from Africa. It came from the motherland. It did not come from Europe, okay? People get it twisted, that it came from our tradition, first and foremost.
Now she's on fire.
And therefore,
let me slow you down. Because I know you're on fire. You're right there.
Hold on, wait. Hold on. Understand, this loops into the whole thing that I'm getting ready to say about in terms of where I come from, who I am, and also the lineage, and as far as Nat Turner also is concerned, and how all this comes together because of the fact that I found out that Queen Chief Edie Turner, artist Turner, was also a queen mother.
I was trying to slow you down. Of course, I want you to get to that.
Okay.
What I wanted you to do is this.
So you understand.
I wanted you to break down what Queen Mother means. What the tradition actually means. So our folks who are trying to figure out just what that is have some basic clarity, and then we'll come into the family heritage question.
Hi, excuse me, Reverend Queen Mother. Do you have other sound in the background? Because when your mic is on, there's an echo. It's almost like you have the broadcast going, and it's creating a loop.
I just turned my air conditioner off. Is this better?
You're good, but when when anyone else talks, there's a loop when your mic is on. When your mic is off, there's no loop. Whenever your mic is on, there's like a loop. So I was just asking.
So do you have Facebook or YouTube open?
Yeah, do you have Facebook open or YouTube open? Are you that right now? Like, are you? Is the broadcast going on something else that you're listening to?
Let's see.
Because I was just trying to see where the loop was coming from, but I think sometimes if you have Facebook open or you have YouTube open while you're on, that's going to create some feedback. And it might not show up when you talk, but it shows up when anyone talks to you.
Right. It was.
1, check 2. How is this now?
I think
it's better.
It's better. It is better. It's back. It's back. All right, so we'll keep going. We'll keep going. We got to plow through. While you're speaking, Queen.
Okay. Go ahead, Queen.
Do what you do.
Okay, is this good? How are we now? Okay. So I've closed a whole lot of windows where there might be possible other sound coming from. Okay. 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 So Baba Zaid, the question that you asked me was,
what does Queen Mother mean? Define Queen Mother.
Well, the Queen Mother in ancient Kemet had the power to seat or remove a king. If a king was not doing his job, then she could remove him. I actually had that that very unfortunate role within my temple, where a brother who I had put in the position of being a priest, a high priest at that, was not doing his job, and I had to kick him out. It was unfortunate because the fact that he was someone that I really had a lot of respect for at the time, but he was not doing his job. And so, but ideally the Queen Mother is someone who—
very practical explanation, sure.
Yes, but the Queen Mother is someone who she takes on many roles. I mean, she's a warrior. She's a diplomat. She is a culture. She's a keeper of the culture. And at times, then she is the one who, depending on the circumstances, will have to run a country. It depends on the circumstance. It depends on where. Many parts of it depends on where in the motherland she is. It depends on the people that she comes from. Depends on what is called for. And so it varies.
Okay, now I would love to bring you back. I would love to bring you back with the great Bashir
for me,
who's doing a whole lot to
and
bring
there's protection
to the school system. Go ahead, finish your point.
But for me, there is a warrior spirit, and but it makes sense because of the lineage that I carry. It is about protecting your people, your family, your culture.
So now let us get into your family heritage. We're still getting that echo, and I apologize for that. So I'm going to minimize my questioning just so we can get through this, right? You have the great Billy artist that we've known about for some time, and then you just learned about another family ancestor that was even more directly tied to Nat Turner, and that brings another important element in his rebellion that has totally been missed for better than a century, and that is the relationship and the importance of the indigenous people here and our relationship with indigenous people here as in our resistance to slavery and white supremacy. The time is now. Let us hear about that. You muted.
Absolutely. In my research, and I want to encourage everyone to do as much continuous research on your own family as possible, and be aware of the fact that more information shows up on a regular basis, whether you believe it or not. I mean, even in preparing for today and going back, I found even more. There's more information than when our family began doing deep research 20 years ago. And so you'd be surprised what turns up, because the fact that people will begin sharing documents and post the documents, and historians will begin posting documents. And so be persistent in digging up your own past. And so I was doing research, and so someone posted something on Facebook. I didn't expect to find this, but I was doing research on an ancestor in the Artis family. Now, Artis is the family name that I've been familiar with. And Artis was originally Ortiz, but that's another branch of the story. And this relative, her name is Queen Chief, sometimes noted, or sometimes Chief Queen, Edie or Edith Turner, sometimes noted as Artis Turner. And so on Facebook, someone posted an article about Nat Turner. This is in relation to Nat Turner and his relatives, and how he was of the Nottoway people. And the Nottoway, who exist today, how he was fighting for indigenous rights of the Nottoway people. Chief Queen Edie Turner was very highly regarded and respected because of her leadership, because of the fact that she was considered something of a genius, even though that she was not able to read or write, but was an amazing leader. But the fact that she was a Turner, and that she was related to Nat Turner's mother, and there was a tie with the Artists and the Turners here. And I should tell you that my great-great-grandfather was born the same year that Billy Artis, who was a cousin in the family, who was in the Nat Turner Rebellion, and who was considered a confidant to Nat Turner. He was considered a free person of color who fought in the rebellion, along with two other cousins, but who were not as driven, and who were not noted in the same way that Billy Artis was. But he was the one who was written about. He was the one who was considered the most progressive. But he died in the rebellion and in 1831. And my great-grandfather was born in the same year, and this was after the rebellion, in 1831, and was given the name Adam Toussaint Artis. Toussaint being named for the freedom warrior in Haiti. And we have found out that we have Haitian blood naturally. But the connection, though, with the Nottoway people, this article that was on Facebook was talking about the fact that it is believed that Nat Turner was fighting for the indigenous rights of the Nottoway people, along with the rights of the enslaved Africans. That it was not just the one the battle for correct. But what shocked me was to find the direct blood tie with the Turners. And I'd known about the Turner name being in our family, but I never saw the connection until this article, which broke it down and spelled it out. And so then it made even more sense as to why this cousin would be even more passionately involved in the battle. And so now, I mean, if you Google it, you can find it. If you put in Facebook, and you put in Nat Turner, and you put in Nottoway, Nottoway, and I mean, it's fascinating to me, and there's been a movement, an underground movement for some time with people pushing this theory of Nat Turner being Nottoway and his mother being Nottoway, and that he was fighting for the Nottoway people.
Hello, Zaid.
Okay, so are you sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. That chairman and
chairman
we're kind of over time, but I want.
And I know we're running. Time on the segment. I know you're about to wrap it up.
No, I want to, Chairman, I want you to lift up the importance why we do this observation every year, and now Queen Mother has given us several more additional layers to the magnitude of Nat Turner's legacy. We want you to just lift up why that's important for us to do.
Thank you.
Every year.
Thank you, Zaid. First of all, let me give the highest respect to a group called Friends of Nat Turner Park, which is co-chaired by Sister Elizabeth McGrady and Brother Richard. Also, one of its key members was Atno Smith. He and his brother Roger were founders of the original branch, Newark branch of the Black Panther Party. And they are in essence, the creators of Nat Turner Park, which was officially opened in 2009. It is a city-owned park. Now, to be frank, I had not been involved with Nat Turner. I didn't even know people were working on a Nat Turner Park. And when I read in the newspaper that the city council had approved Nat Turner Park, I was pleasantly surprised, and I wanted to know what type of ancestral magic the brothers and sisters used to get that through the city council of Newark, because Nat Turner was the leader of a slave rebellion, a rebellion that was carried out that resulted in the deaths of many people, black and white. But as you said, Zaid, it was a forerunner to the Civil War. And so the Friends of Nat Turner Park created this park, which they built around the pool that was always there, which was 18th Avenue Street Pool. And so they had been able, the land had been cleared, and they had a plan, a proposal, and they partnered with the city, and they got this beautiful park laid out with all types of amenities. It has a beautiful, fairly new running track and football field. Now the pool is part of the park. It's a beautiful park. But one of the concerns that the People's Organization for Progress had was that we wanted people to know who Nat Turner was, because a lot of times we have memorials and statues and all types of things that have people's names on them, and we know very little about the people that these monuments are named after. So 13 years ago, the People's Organization for Progress reached out to the Friends of Nat Turner Park, and every year for the past 13 years, we've had a ceremony, essentially a program, on August 21st, which was the first day of the Nat Turner Rebellion. And we have that in the park, and we had our 13th annual observance on Sunday, August 21st. But Nat Turner is probably the most well-known of the slave rebel leaders in the United States. Herbert Aptheker, in his book, Slave Rebellions in Colonial America, says that there were as many as 400 recorded slave rebellions. And he said recorded because there were many that went unrecorded. So at least 400 known slave rebellions in what we call the United States today. And the Nat Turner Rebellion was one of the largest and certainly one of the most impactful. I think it was about 50 whites were killed, 60 some odd black people were initially killed, and then after the rebellion, as many as possibly 200 were black people were killed in the aftermath of the rebellion, when the white slave patrols went on the hunt to hunt down Nat Turner and his compatriots. They launched the rebellion on August 21st. It lasted for about 2 days. Nat Turner initially escaped and was at large, hiding in what they call the Dismal Swamp of Virginia. I think it's still called that today. It was a swamp that white people really did not want to go into for a whole host of reasons. But Nat Turner and many slave people used that swamp as a hiding place and a place to have their secret activities. Nat Turner was at large for about 2 months. I believe that he was apprehended on October 30th of 1831, and he was tried and executed on November 11th, 1831. He was executed in the most gruesome way imaginable. He was not only hanged, after he was hanged, he was decapitated, and his body was drawn and quartered. Now, I don't know about young people today, but when I was a kid, we used to hear this term sometimes, like when we would be watching television shows and movies about, medieval knights, and somebody would say, draw and quarter that person. That means that a horse was tied to each limb, 4 horses, 2 for the arms and 2 for the legs. And then the horses would be forced to tear the body apart. So Nat Turner was decapitated, he was drawn and quartered, and he was flayed. Flaying meant that he was skinned. And one of the least known things about slavery in the Western Hemisphere and slavery in the United States is that the skins of enslaved people were used to make shoes and garments and bags and other things.
Yep.
In fact, there was quite a market in the United States and in Europe for human skin. This is something that, would require another program for us to talk about, because, we really don't know the depths and the horrors of enslavement. We know that we were enslaved. We know that we were whipped and that we were chained. But we don't know about the monstrous brutalities that were regularly visited upon us on a daily basis. I mean, these people don't want to teach Black history now. They don't want to teach the sanitized Black history. But you have a number of books out now, like Stamped from the Beginning. Half the Story Has Never Been Told.
That was excellent. That was excellent. Half the Story Has Never Been Told was such an excellent book that
yes.
detailed it. There's also one called, and this is one that many of you know, Chris Randall, he found. We were debating a topic. We were debating about anti-Blackness. They were talking about animal rights, and they were like, but Black people were never eaten. And then 2 weeks later, he sends me this book called The Delectable Negro.
Yes, I saw that.
That talks about the metaphorical and literal consumption of Black people. They talk about how parts of Nat Turner's body was like boiled down and made into oil, right?
Right.
And there was something called Negro soup. and
Lord.
it was wild in terms of just those things. So yeah, like there are things that talk about that as of even now. So you would but continue.
Thank you. No, that's a pretty good place to stop. But suffice it, let me say this. Let me end with this. It is so important that we study the resistance of Black people.
That's right.
We study Black history, but much of the Black history we study does not include our resistance. And it would give you the impression that, you know, perhaps a lot of us were okay with slavery, you know, but there is a deep, deep and long history of resistance from the shores of Africa, on the ships crossing the Atlantic, and here. I mean, like, how many Black people can name slave rebellion leaders beyond that term? Another one that comes up in August is Denmark Vesey. In fact, Denmark Vesey's rebellion, which did not get executed, he was betrayed. He was hanged for planning the rebellion. He and others were hanged just for planning the rebellion. And their rebellion was like 1822, I think August 31st, 1822. But there were many slave leaders, not only within the United States, but outside of the United States. Like, how many of us, you know about Nanny, Queen Nanny of the Maroons in Jamaica, or know about Gaspar Yanga in Mexico, or know about Zumbi, who established a nation, the Palmares, which was initially a kind of Maroon community, but it was expanded into a nation, and the leaders signed a treaty with Portugal, you know, as did the Maroons in Jamaica. There was resistance throughout the Western Hemisphere. Like, when I was a kid, right, we learned about Simon Bolivar, right? The great liberator of Latin America. But how many of us were taught? I mean, I wasn't taught. I asked the question, how many of us were taught that one of the prerequisites to the liberation of the many countries that Bolivar liberated, one of the prerequisites was to abolish slavery? In fact, Simon Bolivar was given refuge at one point in Haiti. And of course, all of us, you know, it's so wonderful, Black August, because there's so many historical events, you know, like Nat Turner is wedged between Marcus Garvey's birthday and the next day is the beginning, August 22nd is the beginning of the Haitian Revolution. Most Black people do not know the intricate relationship between the Haitian Revolution and the abolition of slavery in this country. The two are inextricably bound up together. You know,
and we don't know on purpose too. We don't know on purpose.
It's not because we can't learn. It's that it was kept from us, and they had the information, but they want to teach a sanitized history. And now they don't want to teach any history at all, because this whole CRT madness is really their way to get out of teaching any Black history, any history that contradicts the mythology that they call the history of the United States. You know, the truth of the matter is that you cannot tell the history of this country apart from the history of Black people here in the Western Hemisphere and in Africa. I mean, from the very founding of the first colony, which was not Virginia, which was not August 23rd, 1619, the first Africans were actually in South Carolina. The Spanish had a colony in South Carolina in the 1500s, and they had another one that lasted for some time in Florida, in St. Augustine. You know, the College St. Augustine. St. Augustine was where the first Spanish colony was in Florida, and it preceded. It was in the 1500s, almost a whole century before the beginning of what they call the triangular trade slaves in the world.
500,000 Africans were brought to South and Central America before the English even got busy in what is now the United States and Canada.
Exactly. So it's important to understand the history of resistance, because if you don't tell that part, you're really not telling the truth. Hegel, who I shouldn't even quote here, he was a racist too. He didn't believe black people had a culture, but he was a philosopher who said the truth is the whole. So if you don't teach the history of resistance, you're not really teaching the truth, and it would give the impression that somehow, maybe we liked being oppressed. No, we resisted. Every year there was a slave rebellion somewhere in the United States. And the greatest slave rebellion was the Civil War. Had not African men, black men, been recruited into the Union Army, the North would not have won the war, because the resolve was not in the white soldiers. Many of these white soldiers were gang pressed into service. You see this in that movie, The Gangs in New York, where the Irish are getting off the boat, they go into the house, and they come out the house with uniforms on, and they get in another boat, and they're taken down south to fight in the war. White Irish immigrants in New York tried to burn New York City to the ground. They had what was called the draft riots, because they didn't come to this country to fight in the Civil War. This is what it was. It was the reality of war that pushed Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, which was a military recruitment document. It only offered freedom to those enslaved people who could escape from behind enemy lines, join the Union Army, and if they could survive the war, they would have their freedom. It didn't free all slaves, but black people answered the call. 220,000 black men and some women joined all branches of the Union forces. 186,000 joined the Union Army. They joined the Navy and the Merchant Marines and other branches, and they fought. They fought so, and it's so painful, because even in the army that was supposed to be the machinery to destroy slavery, they were discriminated against. The black soldiers received half the pay of the white soldiers. Many times the black soldiers were given weapons that didn't work, were given uniforms but not boots that didn't have soles. They were given canned food that was rotten. But they fought anyway, because they weren't just fighting for Lincoln, they were fighting for their people, and they knew they were fighting to destroy slavery. And all of this history it's part of the history of resistance. I mean, right here in New Jersey, there's a town called Pennington, New Jersey. And Pennington has a cemetery called the African Cemetery. That was the name of it, the name given in the 19th century. The black people there bought land to bury the black Union soldiers, because even after the Civil War, the white Union soldiers and the black Union soldiers, the Union, I didn't say Confederate, the white and black Union soldiers could not be buried together in the same cemetery. Even in death, they were discriminated against. And so the black people of Pennington, New Jersey, bought land. They called it the African Cemetery. And I urge people to go and visit that cemetery, because you can look at headstones, because these men wanted you to see what they did, their rank, their platoon. I mean, you could read like gunner, cannon master, all of that's on their tombstone. And then one day, I've been there like 3 times. Let me finish this point. Let me finish this point. The last time I was there, I looked at the tombstones, and one of the things I noticed was that all these guys, like, they were from units that were from either Connecticut or Pennsylvania. And I asked the sisters, because it's a black family that maintains the cemetery, I said, how come there's so many people here from Connecticut and from Pennsylvania? the units. She said because New Jersey, which had slavery at the time of the Civil War, 20,000 enslaved people, the Black men could not enlist for the Union Army in New Jersey. They had to go to Pennsylvania, Connecticut, or Rhode Island. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, I also you ever been in class and the professor leaves you with something to bite on for the next class, and I think right there, because did you you happened upon that cemetery? Was it a Memorial Day or a Labor Day? You went down there, and I remember you was telling us how you came upon that. So was it Memorial or Labor Day you went down there?
It was Memorial Day. It was in May. Memorial Day is in May, right?
May,
That,
so it was
that's when I
Memorial
went
Day.
down. And I had learned about this cemetery some years prior because I worked in Trenton, and one of the newspapers in Trenton had done a story on the cemetery. That's how I found out about it. And as soon as I found out about it, I said, I have to go there. And I'm glad I did. And I went and met the family, primarily Black women now, the husbands had passed on, who maintain that cemetery. And they have a wonderful ceremony there every Memorial Day.
We have to put that information up on the All Politics and Local page so people can go visit that. Well, obviously,
ironically, Memorial Day is also started in the South to preserve a Black soldier's burial in South Carolina.
It's 8:56, and I was going to say we're going to have to continue Black August. I don't know why we're doing it the last. We've been doing it. You admit it. We've been doing it. So it's been so much going on. Like you and Larry just said it. You know, how is Nat Turner nestled between Marcus Garvey? You know, and this happened to also be having to wake up one morning and they were honoring Black businesses. So this month is just jam packed with so much information that sometimes we miss something. But I wanted to know if Hakim, because when we come back next Friday, we will be in the middle of 24 hours of peace. And I wanted to know if Haqq was still on the phone so that he can let the people know, or did we decide did he move on? And if Haqq is not on the phone and he doesn't have a word about 24 hours of peace, Chairman Hamm and Mother, could you have some last words? And we have about 3 minutes. Mother,
Go ahead, Queen Mother.
We forgot our most important question. I know Chairman Hamm, but Mother, if you have a hip hop artist that inspires you, let us know who that hip hop artist, individual, or group is.
Well, I love the rest of the developments, but I'm old school. You know, Abiodun Oyewole is a dear friend of mine. He called me to check in on me the other day. So I have to give it up to the last poets, the original godfathers of rap.
Look at that. Good job, poets. Oh, that's one of Chairman's favorites too. Chairman, anybody? Mother, did you want to say anything? Any events or anything?
Yes, my favorite hip hop artist is Hakim Green because he brings the analysis. But I just want to say one thing I learned about, and I don't know if y'all heard about it. Did you know that there's a slavery? Right? Did you know that there's a Slavery Remembrance Day officially observed by the United States? Did y'all know that?
No. What day?
The UN has
had a ceremony on Saturday at the White House for Slavery Remembrance Day.
So there's an International Day for the remembrance of slavery and its abolition. And there's an International Day for the remembrance of slavery and its victims.
But he said the United States.
Is March 25th. The other is August 24th. And that's probably Biden was probably biting off of that. That's from the United Nations.
Okay. All right. So Hakim is no longer with us. Zaika, do you have any information about 24 hours of peace that you want to say before we leave? We know that Queen Latifah is coming home to host 24 Hours of Peace. But do you
Yes.
have any more information? She is
6
coming
p.m. September 2nd, 6 p.m. to September 3rd, 6 p.m. Springfield Avenue at Bloom, right in the center of town. We're going to shut it down for 24 Hours Peace. Special guest host is none other than our beloved hometown, homegrown star, Queen Latifah. And Hakim has been an instrumental player in the organization, in the management, and the production of 24 Hours Peace from its inception. He's been an important player. Him and our beloved Miri Baraka Jr., Lumidi, are both primary organizers of 24 Hours of Peace. It is
so
a
is Hakim going to be performing in MIDI?
In our work.
Is Hakim performing and is MIDI DJing?
That I don't know.
Okay. So you say it commences September 2nd at 6 p.m. until 24 hours to September 3rd at 6 p.m. And Jonathan, first, second, third, or whatever wife will be the host. Queen Latifah will be coming home to host. So everybody, and what number is this? How many years have this 24 Hours of Peace been going on?
I think this is either 12 or 13. I'm not sure. I think it's 12 or 13. It's been a few years.
And Sunday, this Sunday, Chairman, 1 p.m.
Yes. Yes. This Sunday we're going to do remembrance of the 1963 March on Washington this Sunday at the Martin Luther King statue in front of the Martin Luther King Justice Center, which is 495 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Newark, right next to the Hall of Records. There's this huge statue of Martin Luther King. We're going to gather there at 1 o'clock on Sunday, not just to talk about 1963, but to relate that to the current struggle that's going on in this country for voting rights and against racism and fascism that is upon us now. And did you notice, was it yesterday? Biden said the F word.
Oh.
and I don't mean the F-U-C-K word. Biden described the Republicans as semi-fascist.
Well, Jonathan, we're at the end, but I will say that earlier we talked about Biden's at the point in his life that he ain't mixing no words, but
he never missed words. He's just always speaking, right? Like, just says it.
And $10,000. We had a whole full conversations about the student loan debt. So you didn't get to chime in on that because you kept telling Biden to pay those babies.
Pay them kids. But kids got 20,000. So there are some people I know who were like 20,000 because they qualify for Pell Grants. So they get not just 10,000 but 20,000. And they're, oh man, the thing's gone online right now. One woman said, well, she was funny. She was like, I'm gonna start treating Biden like crackheads who treat people who give him $10. Like, anybody talks about Joe Biden, I'm beating him up. I'm talking about Joe Biden giving me $20,000. I'm gonna fight. Hilarious. Hilarious.
Well, and this Sunday, that's why, to keep that march on Washington, and why we have to keep and talking and let these young people know that if they want these things to happen, and if they want 50 or more, they have to get the right people in those seats. They just don't happen because he says it, and that happens by and we heard Dr. Owens. Dr. Owens was on fire tonight. She was like, "I'm sorry, election day is the report card," and I was like, "Okay." They would, the education panel was on fire. That we have to understand the importance to voting your and I know here I go doing a whole nother topic, but we got to vote. That's all I have to say. We have to vote, and you cannot. I don't care how pissed you are. Go in New Jersey. I don't know other states, New Jersey, and I believe you can. If you don't want to see the person, go put your name in there. But I can't. I don't want you to do that. I want you to be very strategic about voting, but you got to vote.
All right. Well, Thank you. And thank you for our guests coming on. Thank you to the disciples. Thank you to our education panel and Kaleena for putting that together, right? Like that was a really nice panel, right? Like that was put together. So Dr. Sharnee Brown, Leah, Dr. Owens, right? Dr. Owens, and the other and Love Galliard, the other guest, for Corey for coming on as well.
And I'm sorry. And Rhino is just not absent. Rhino is celebrating X amount of years of marriage. This is his anniversary, so he's on a love this weekend. So he's our DJ, but he's taking care of home. Happy anniversary, DJ Rhino.
Happy anniversary, DJ Rhino.
Happy anniversary.
And thank you also to Reverend Queen Mother Amakhu and brother Larry Hamm. You always, as I always say, you inspire me every time you're on. I had the honor of hearing you twice this week when you talked to my students, and I appreciated that a lot. Right, my students appreciated that you started off the week, and a lot of kids, as always, are better educated because of you.
Thank you, brother.
You got a visiting professor this week, Jonathan. Look at that.
Yes, I had a session this week, but I'm gonna let everyone go home.
And wait. Do y'all know how many awards Jonathan has? Jonathan Austin got so many awards. His debate team. He is one of the leading. My eyes were open when I was there this week.
The whole country.
He is one of the leading debate coaches in the country. His debate teams have so many trophies that they have dedicated a whole big room in the school just for and that's not the trophies that are in the display case. Like when you come into school, you see a whole display case of trophies. But then you go around the corner in this room. I thought I had a lot of awards. I was like, what? See, I got these plaques, but Jonathan got trophies. He don't even have no medals. He got these trophies. He got trophies that you got to put on a cart. They so big. And I'm not exaggerating. Y'all, it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not.
I've been there. You're not. I've been there.
So right on, brother Jonathan, you're doing good for those kids, man.
That the Great Debaters was kind of loosely based on Jonathan Austin.
It was not.
Now we're getting into some lore now.
No, man, you got to see that room. Saeed, have you seen that room? Have you been in that room?
We know.
In there, brother.
He's incredible.
I ain't never seen nothing like that. He got trophies 5 feet high.
Yeah.
And it's about 200 of them. It ain't even like he got 10 trophies. It's like hundreds. I said, when I saw all those trophies, I said, they're going to have to build another room for the new trophies you're going to get, because there's no more room in that room.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
No, man, I never saw anything like that. I never saw anything like that.
And in closing, did you see the mural of all the debaters from Jersey?
No, I didn't see the mural. I didn't get to see the mural.
You didn't see the mural, Jonathan?
Well, I didn't point it out. You saw it, but I just didn't point out I didn't point it out that there. It's like when you walk down the hall, that's the art teacher. We have an art teacher who's an artist who happens to teach. He's a great artist. He basically has murals all over the school. And she really, the entire hallway, she did a mural that's dedicated to debate. So when you walk down that hallway, you saw debaters throughout history, right? Like it started with Ptahhotep in ancient Egypt, who had the first book. And then it goes into more contemporary people who did debate in high school, right? Like, so there are a lot of people who are contemporary who did debate in high school, like Oprah did debate in high school. And there are a lot of other people who are more modern debaters. Did debate in high school. So all those, so that's kind of celebrated. So our art teacher is amazing.
That's wonderful. That's quite a feat. And I just want to correct you on one thing, because it's a common myth that the oldest book is from Ptahhotep. That's not true.
Oh, it's the oldest book on rhetoric. It's the oldest book on persuasive speaking. Not the oldest book, though.
Okay. Yes, the oldest book is from Prince Harjadef.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, he was the first one to write about like how to speak persuasive. And so it's a letter that's written that basically is telling him.
Well, there's a book that follows the book of Kagimni that also talks about persuasive, how to conduct yourself persuasively. There are a few misperceptions in the community that need to be corrected, and so you should let me come and talk to your class about that.
Absolutely.
But I should tell you, it is very important to be able to speak correctly, and that was greatly prized in ancient Kemet. And I'm sure you know about the book of the story of the eloquent peasant. And that is very important for your speeches, your speech and debates students to know about. And because that is the framework that is used today in churches, in courts. That one is classic, and so that one should be you and I should talk.
Okay, well, we will definitely talk. We'll definitely talk. And so
kudos to you.
Thank you. And
because in the studio we were kicked out 10 minutes ago.
Supported by NPS. Right? Public schools have been supporting us for 40 years, actually. Coach Brent Fran was coach before me. And I always say there's going to be coaches after me too. And it's really about the public support that we get. So thank you. We're heading out, and I'm definitely going to talk to you. All right. Peace.
Good show, y'all.